I had been on night shift for barely 3 weeks, and I thought I had an idea of what fear sounded like over the phone. But nothing could have prepared me for that first call. It started with the usual static crackle. I answered, 911, what's your emergency? My voice was a little too bright, too sure of itself. I was new, and maybe that's why she chose me. Maybe new dispatchers always get the worst calls. Please help me, a woman whispered, her voice trembling like leaves in the wind. I jotted down her number and location as fast as I could. Her address was only a few blocks away, which made it worse. Close enough to reach her. Close enough for whatever was out there to still be watching. Ma'am, can you tell me what's happening? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, steady. They're outside. I can feel them. Watching me, she said, the words almost breaking. There was a pause, like she was holding her breath, listening. I could hear it too. The faintest scrape against what I imagined was her window. A soft, slow scratch. But when I asked her to look, she hesitated. I don't want them to see me. My hands were sweating over the console, but I kept writing, kept asking questions. Can you see them? I pressed. No. It's like they're just there, everywhere. Her voice cracked, low and desperate. There was a strange rhythm to her fear, like she'd been experiencing for days, but no one was around to confirm it. No one else could see what she saw. I asked for details anyway. I had to. It was procedure. But I felt a growing unease I hadn't expected. They don't move, she whispered. They just watch. From the shadows, from the corners. I catch glimpses if I turn fast enough. But then they vanish, like they were never there. I'm not crazy. I know I'm not. I've never felt like this before. It's wrong. I wanted to reassure her, to tell her she was safe. But the words felt hollow. I had seen a lot in training tapes, heard a lot in recorded calls. But this was different. There was no frantic shouting, no accident, no fire. Just fear that swallowed the air around it. Stay on the line, I said softly, hoping my calm would reach her, reach whatever was outside. Help is on the way. Can you stay somewhere safe? I don't know, she said. Her voice was almost inaudible, trembling to a point where I could barely make out the words. Then she froze. I could hear her breathing, slow, sharp. It's right behind the door. I can feel it. The hair on my arms rose. I wanted to tell her it wasn't there, that she was safe, but I couldn't. The way she said it made my chest tighten. I had no right to dismiss her fear. Not that kind of fear. Don't turn around. I instructed. My voice had an edge I hadn't known I possessed. I need you to stay calm. Keep your phone on and don't make a sound. I can't, she whispered. There. Her words cut off abruptly, replaced by a soft, dragging sound. Something sliding across the floor? Something brushing against furniture? I wasn't sure. I could hear it only faintly over the line, like the world itself had gone slightly out of focus. I called her name, repeated it until she answered, a soft, shaky, I'm here, barely audible. Can you lock yourself somewhere? A room, a closet? I asked, my own heartbeat thundering, so loud it felt like the only sound in the world. I can try, she said, but they follow. I don't think it's human. I don't. The line went quiet. My screen showed I was still connected, but her breathing had slowed. Too slow. I started to panic inside, but I forced myself to stay composed. Dispatchers weren't supposed to panic. I was supposed to guide, to instruct, to help. Ma'am, I need you to stay on the line, I said, almost pleading. Can you touch something solid? A wall? Hold on to something you can feel. Yes. Her voice was distant, almost fading. I could hear it echoing in a way that made my stomach turn. I'm holding, and then a voice low and impossibly soft hissed behind her. I can hear it, I said before she could even scream, but she didn't respond. There was only the dragging sound again, closer this time, deliberate. The hair on my neck prickled, as if I could feel it moving in the room with her. I called in a unit, my voice shaking just enough for me to notice. Unit 7, I have a priority call. Female, approximately late 20s. Address, possible intruder inside. Unknown. Caller states she's being watched. Proceed with caution. The dispatcher on the other line confirmed. Unit en route. ETA 3 minutes. 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. I kept her talking, asking questions, trying to maintain the threat of her presence on the line, trying to keep her tethered to reality. But the dragging sounds continued, and sometimes it stopped, replaced by silence so complete it roared in my ears. Do you see anything? I asked gently, though my gut screamed not to. No, she said. I think I see the shadow, just moving, flickering. But when I blink, her voice broke. It's gone. It was never there. I knew then that this wasn't just fear. This was something else. Something that didn't belong. Something that existed just beyond sight, just beyond reason. I couldn't see it, couldn't hear it, but I felt it. I could feel the shift in her voice, the subtle tremor that came when someone or something hovered too close. Stay calm. I whispered, more to myself than her. Keep your eyes forward. Count the seconds. Counting, her voice, trembling and thin, started a rhythm I couldn't follow. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Sometimes skipping, sometimes stuttering. Units close. I reminded her, and in that moment, I wondered if it would matter, if whatever this was, whatever it had chosen her for, would even acknowledge them, if it would vanish before anyone could ever reach her, leaving nothing behind. A soft thud echoed through the line, louder this time, deliberate. My stomach dropped. I couldn't tell if it was the floorboards, the wall, or her. Don't move, I instructed, though I felt the fragility of my own command. They're close, she whispered. Then a faint, rasping breath sounded directly into the phone. I flinched, my mind reeled with questions I didn't want answers to. Who or what was it? How could it be here and nowhere at the same time? Units right there, I said again, my own voice trembling, fighting the panic rising in me. There was a long pause. I held my breath with her. Then a sound, a soft click of a lock, faint but real. She whispered, almost a sob. They can't get in, not yet. I exhaled slowly, trying not to imagine the figure just beyond her door, waiting, always watching. The police arrived moments later. I stayed on the line until the dispatcher confirmed she was safe, until I heard the relieved sighs of officers entering the apartment. The dragging sound stopped. The line went quiet, then disconnected. And then the worst part hit me. There was nothing, no trace, no fingerprints, no broken locks, no sign that anyone or anything had been there at all. Just an empty apartment, and a woman trembling on the couch. I sat back, my hands still shaking, staring at the console. My heart was hammering, my ears ringing. I realized then that I had felt it too. The presence, the weight in the air, the thing that watched from the edges of the world. Something had been there. Something had chosen her. And if it had chosen her, then I knew, with a certainty I didn't want, that I could be next. After the first call, the station never felt the same. Even the fluorescent lights seemed harsher, too bright, washing the walls with sterile glow that made every shadow feel deliberate, like it had a purpose. I tried to shake it off as paranoia, rookie nerves, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Something had been in that apartment. Something had moved in the corners where the light didn't reach. I had barely had a moment to breathe before a call came again. I almost didn't recognize the number at first, but when it rang, my stomach dropped. I knew that trembling, shallow voice anywhere. 911? It's happening again. Ma'am, stay calm. You're safe. The officers are there, right? I asked, even though my words fell hollow. They're gone. They left, but it didn't stop. It never stops. I can see them. Everywhere. They move differently now. Shadows, shapes in the corners, under the furniture, on the walls. I see them flicker when I blink, but when I focus, they're gone. I felt the pulse in my throat tighten. I had spent hours trying to process what I had heard the first time, trying to rationalize it, and now it had come back, and it was worse. Can you describe them? I asked, keeping my voice calm, though my hands were trembling. I don't know. They're wrong. Not human, not animal. They move like water but solid, like smoke but with edges. I can feel them if I stand too close. I can hear them whisper when the wind shifts. I try to ignore it, but her voice faltered and I felt it, that icy claw of fear curling around my spine. It's like they're inside me now, not just a house. Watching through my eyes, listening through my ears. I swallowed hard. Okay, you're not alone. Officers are there. Can you stay in one room? A safe room. I tried, she whispered, but it's like no matter where I go, they're there. Behind the door, under the bed, in the mirror. I don't understand. How? How can something be everywhere at once? I paused, trying to find words. I didn't have any. All I could do was listen. Let her words paint a terror that I could barely comprehend. Shadows that weren't shadows. Shapes that moved against logic. The cold, creeping awareness that someone or something was watching. Ma'am, I need you to focus on something solid, I said. A chair, a table, anything. Keep your hand on it. Something you can feel. Okay, I'm touching the table, she said. Her voice was shaky, but there was a slight steadiness in it. A tether to reality I tried to reinforce. Then came the first whisper, a sound so soft I almost didn't hear it. My head tilted toward the phone. Straining, it was barely audible. A hiss, indecipherable, and yet somehow familiar. I felt my stomach drop. I hear it. I whispered, almost involuntarily. I wasn't supposed to admit it. Not to her. Not to anyone. Dispatchers weren't supposed to feel fear over the line. But I could hear it too, or maybe I imagined it. The whisper curling in my ear, almost tasting the words before they were formed. Do you hear that? She asked, her voice a trembling echo of my own dread. Yes, I admitted. I think I do. Just stay calm. Don't respond to it. Focus on the table. I can't, she gasped. It's in the walls now, in the shadows, in the corners, even behind my eyes. I don't think I can hide from it. It knows everything. Everything I do. I could feel my own fear twisting into a tight knot in my chest. I had seen calls before, reports of home invasions, break-ins, sometimes worse. But this was different. This wasn't a person. This wasn't a human threat. This was something that bent the rules, that existed in the spaces where logic failed. Unit's still there, I said, try to reassure her, though the words felt meaningless. They're checking the house. They'll keep you safe. They can't stop it, she whispered. They won't see it, and it follows me. Even when I close my eyes, it's there. I don't know how to explain it. Shadows in the walls, shapes in the corners, always moving when I look away, always watching. I felt a chill creep along my spine. I had spent hours trying to rationalize the first call, try and believe there was a human explanation, some flaw in perception. But now, listening to her, I knew there was no rational explanation. Shadows that move against reason, watching from impossible angles, bending reality. Her voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible. I can feel in the room. It's close. I don't want to turn around, but I can feel it breathing right there, right behind me, watching me. I gripped the phone tighter. My stomach knotted, my pulse racing. I wanted to tell her it wasn't real. I wanted to tell her that everything would be fine. But the whispering, soft, insistent, almost intimate, was there and I couldn't ignore it. Keep talking to me, I said. Tell me what you see, even if it's impossible. Keep me with you. I don't know, she said, voice cracking. Shadows flicker, walls bend, the corners stretch too far. I think I can see eyes. Eyes that aren't human. Watching, always watching. And they move when I blink. When I look again, gone. But I can feel them. In the floorboards, in the ceiling, in my own skin. I shivered. The station felt colder. The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to warp, stretching into low, unearthly tones. For a moment, I wondered if I was hearing it too. Her fear shaping reality around me, bleeding through the line into the small, fluorescent-lit room I sat in. Stay with me, I urged. Just stay with me. Don't let it pull you away. I'm trying, she whispered, and then a sound, low, dragging, deliberate, echoed through the line. My throat tightened. The sound was familiar, like the first call, but different. Heavier, slower, deliberate. I realized with sickening certainty that it was moving toward her. Don't move. I instructed, though I could feel my own body tense, my own fear climbing. I can't tell if it's in the room or in my head, she said. It changes shape, flickers. Eyes appear, disappear. I don't know if I can survive this. The words hit me like a physical blow. I had never heard pure terror like this. I had trained for emergencies, for accidents, for crimes. But not for this, not for something that existed in the spaces where reason failed, that could move through walls, through shadows, through consciousness itself. Units right there, I said, trying to force calm into my voice. They'll protect you. They can't protect me, she whispered. It's inside me now, watching, waiting, not human, not alive. I don't want to die like this. I can't. The line went silent, not disconnected, just silent. I froze listening. Nothing, only the faint hum of the station. The shadows in my office seemed darker now, deeper, stretching where they shouldn't. I rubbed my eyes. I told myself it was exhaustion, imagination, stress. But deep down I knew it had reached across the line. I could feel it there, watching me, waiting. Minutes passed, hours, maybe. I kept the line open, heart hammering, imagining her alone in that apartment, surrounded by impossible shadows, by shapes that weren't real and yet were. Finally, the dispatcher confirmed. She was alive. Officers had made it into the apartment. No signs of intrusion. No marks, no footprints, no evidence. Just an empty apartment. Except for the woman shaking on the couch, eyes wide, whispering about shadows that weren't there. And I couldn't shake it. Even at the station, I felt it. A cold presence pressing at the edges of my vision, lingering in the corners just out of sight. Shadows flickered where there shouldn't be any. Shapes shifted in the hum of the fluorescent lights. The whispering, soft, almost intimate, curling through the silence. I realized then that I hadn't just heard the fear on the line. I had felt it, and somehow it had followed me back. I sat at my console long after the call ended, staring into the dim light, listening to the quiet, waiting for it to move, to flicker, to whisper again. And I knew it would, because whatever it was, it didn't stay in one place. It followed. It watched. And now, it was watching me too. It's strange how silence can feel heavier than sound. After that second call, the station didn't just feel quiet. It felt hollow, like something was listening beneath the noise. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, that it was just stress or exhaustion or the late-night hum of old machinery. But the thing about silence is it remembers, it carries what's missing. That night, her number flashed on the screen again. For a second, I just stared at it. I didn't want to answer. My hand hovered over the receiver like it was hot metal. But protocol won and I picked up. 911, what's your emergency? Nothing. Just static. Hello? Ma'am. I asked, my voice catching in my throat. Can you hear me? The line crackled faintly. No voice, no breathing. Just that distant, empty hiss of an open connection. I stayed on, waiting, hoping she would speak. But then the static stopped. The line went dead. That was it. No screaming, no whisper, no sound of movement. Just gone. The call log said she'd been on the line for 6 minutes before I answered. But I hadn't heard a thing when I picked up, like it had been waiting for me. I called the officers back to her address. 2 of them, same as before. They were the ones who'd been there during her last call. Both solid men, serious, skeptical. They didn't like being called out twice for the same case. One of them radioed back after 15 minutes. His voice was low, cautious. Dispatch, no sign of the caller. Apartment's empty. I froze. Empty? What do you mean? Door was locked from the inside, he said. No signs of struggle. Windows latched. No forced entry. Place looks clean. Like no one's been here for days. That didn't make sense. She called barely an hour ago. I checked the records again. Her call was logged at 2:13 a.m. I had answered at 2:19. but the report said her phone line had been disconnected since 11:48 p.m. The company logs confirmed it. Service had cut out hours before the first call even came through. I felt a chill climb the back of my neck. I called her number again. It went straight to a hollow tone, that cold, dead hum that always comes after a disconnection. But when I put the phone down, I swear I heard something whisper through the receiver. Just for a moment. It was too quick, too faint to understand, but it sounded like breathing. After that, I couldn't focus. Every time the phone rang, I jumped. Every voice on the line sounded too close, too quiet. I started hearing things beneath the static. Small, meaningless murmurs that vanished the moment I listened too closely. And then the dreams began. I'd fall asleep in the break room during late shifts and see flashes. Dark shapes in the corners of the station. The same shapes she had described. They didn't move when I watched them, but I could feel them breathing, watching, like they were waiting for me to blink. Every dream ended the same way. Her voice whispering, "Can you hear me?" And then silence. When I woke, the air always felt wrong. The corners darker. The hum of the fluorescent lights lower, slower, like it was dragging through something unseen. I told myself it was fatigue. Everyone on the night shift loses track of time. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just that. Something had come through the line. Something had followed. The next day, I asked the officers for a follow-up. They said the apartment was untouched. No signs of life. No belongings except a half-empty glass of water on the counter and a phone on the floor. The phone was still warm when they found it. No fingerprints. No messages. Nothing. They asked me if I was sure I'd spoken to her. I said yes. I had her voice still ringing in my head. But when they played back the recording of that last call, there was nothing. Just 6 minutes of silence. No static. No whispers. No sound. I sat there, listening to the empty playback. Over and over. My voice was there at the end, asking if she was still on the line. But nothing before that. The tape just started late, like something had erased her side completely. That night, I stayed in the station longer than I should have. I told myself I wanted to check the logs again, maybe find a technical error. But it was more than that. I couldn't stop thinking about the silence, about the missing minutes, about the impossible call from a deadline. The hum of the lights above me seemed softer than usual. The shadows felt longer. The building creaked in ways it hadn't before. When I looked at the window near the end of the hall, I saw movement, a flicker, like someone was standing just beyond the glass. But the hallway was empty. I blinked and the reflection shifted. Not away, closer, like it had leaned forward to meet my eyes. I turned off the light in the hall, hoping the darkness would erase the illusion. It didn't. The reflection stayed, still, watching. I went back to my desk, forcing myself to focus on the screens, the paperwork, anything real. But the silence between the phone rings grew thicker, heavier, like the air itself had a pulse. I thought I saw something move behind the console, a brief, dark shape sliding between the desks. But when I turned, there was nothing, just a soft flicker of the monitors and my own reflection staring back at me from the black glass. Then, from somewhere deep in the static, I heard it again, the whisper. It wasn't coming from the phone this time. It was coming from the headset, soft, rhythmic, like breathing. I froze, slowly. I lifted the headset to my ear. Nothing, just the faint hum of the line. Then, faintly, her voice. "Can you hear me?" My throat went dry. "Hello?" I whispered. "Who is this?" Silence. Then again, the same words, but quieter. "Can you hear me?" I tore the headset off and threw it on the desk. It clattered loudly, breaking the stillness. The moment the sound faded, I realized how quiet everything had become. Too quiet. The hum of the lights was gone. The usual clicks and creaks of the building, gone. Just silence. I turned, slowly, toward the dark glass of the observation window, and for a second, I thought I saw her standing there. Her silhouette faint, blurred, like she was behind thick fog. Her head tilted, her face pale, expression unreadable. Then the lights flickered, and she was gone. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I sat in my car outside the station until dawn, watching the sun crawl up over the rooftops. Tried to convince myself I hadn't seen what I saw. But the next morning, something stranger happened. The chief called me into his office. He said there was a report. The woman's apartment, still locked, still untouched, had been found with new footprints inside. Bare feet, small, delicate, leading from the living room to the kitchen, then stopping. No exit, no trace, just footprints. He said her phone line was confirmed dead. Not disconnected, destroyed. The wiring had been cut, completely melted inside the wall. And no one could explain how a call had come through from it after midnight. I didn't tell him about the whisper, about hearing her voice, or about seeing her reflection in the window. I just nodded, signed the report, and walked out. I wanted to believe it was all a coincidence, a technical glitch, a tired brain seeing patterns in the dark. But deep down, I knew better. When you work dispatch long enough, you learn something nobody writes in the manuals. Some voices don't belong on the line. Some calls aren't meant to be answered. Every time I close my eyes now, I see her apartment. The untouched glass of water, the dark corners, the faint, shifting shapes she described. And sometimes, when the station goes quiet, I still hear her voice through the static. Can you hear me? And I wish I could say no, but I always can. I thought I had seen the worst that night could offer. I thought that after the vanishing, after the empty apartment and the melted phone lines, I could return to normal, or whatever passes for normal on a night shift. But I was wrong. It started subtly. At first, it was just the feeling that someone was watching me in the station. Shadows seemed to linger longer than they should, clinging to corners where no one could stand. The fluorescent lights hummed low, unevenly, and sometimes I thought I saw a movement at the edge of my vision. But when I turned, there was nothing, just the hum of monitors and the sterile walls. I tried to convince myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, my mind playing tricks. I told myself that rationally. I said it over and over like a mantra. I was a professional. I answered calls. I didn't hallucinate. And then the phone rang. It wasn't unusual for calls to come in at 3 in the morning. But when I looked at the screen, my stomach dropped. No number. Just a word, unknown. I picked it up. 911, what's your emergency? My voice was steadier than I felt. A pause. A static hum. And then the whisper. That same trembling, almost intimate voice I knew so well. Can you hear me? I froze. My hand tightened around the receiver. I should have hung up. I should have run. But I didn't. I couldn't. Yes, I whispered. I can hear you. Where are you? A long silence. Then a soft exhale. I'm here. My pulse hit my throat. Here? Where? I'm close. Watching. Waiting. Don't turn. The words weren't coming from a familiar place outside the city, outside the station. They were coming from inside. That voice, her voice was in this building, in the same air I was breathing. And yet, when I looked around, the station was empty, only the hum of monitors, the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights. I wanted to convince myself it was a prank, a new dispatcher playing a sick joke. But the tone, the timbre, the unmistakable fear in the voice, none of it could be faked. It was her, the woman who had vanished, calling from inside the building. I don't understand, I said, my voice breaking. How are you here? Another pause. Long, patient. Heavy. Then, I've been here all along. I felt the cold creep up my spine. The room seemed darker than it should have. Shadows stretching along the walls and the floor, pooling in corners. I could almost see shapes moving there. Flickers too fast catch, too deliberate to be coincidence. There's no one here, I whispered, more to myself than to her. You can't be here. Yes, she breathed. I am, always, watching, listening, waiting. I glanced around. My co-workers were nowhere in sight. I was alone. The station felt different, smaller, the walls bending, like they weren't entirely solid. I wanted to stand, to run, to shake the air free of this presence. But my body wouldn't obey. The voice continued, softer now, almost coaxing. I'm not leaving. You can't leave. Not yet. I shook my head. trying to force myself to remember the rational world. Phones, walls, doors. She shouldn't be here. She couldn't be here. And yet her voice lingered, brushing along my skin like cold fingers. Maybe I'm dreaming. I said aloud, even though I knew I wasn't. This isn't real. Real enough, she whispered. And then the line went dead. No static, no hiss, no dial tone, nothing, just silence. I set the phone down, my hands trembling. I could feel it, the lingering cold, the pressure in the corners, the shadows that seemed just a little too dark. I told myself it was exhaustion, overwork, a mind fraying from too many nights alone in station. But deep down, I knew it wasn't my mind. I walked the length of the station, checking doors, looking into empty rooms. Every corner was empty. Every window showed only the street outside, dimly lit by the street lamps. The building was quiet, too quiet. I went back to my desk. My heart was pounding, and yet every instinct told me to keep listening, to keep the line open, to wait for her voice to come back. And then the monitors flickered, just a small, subtle jump, like static caught inside the screen. But the shadows in the room seemed to respond. They pulled closer to my desk, shifting almost imperceptibly. I told myself I was imagining it. I focused on the flickering screens, the bland reports, the blinking icons. But the sense of being watched didn't go away. It pressed against me from every corner. I picked up the phone again, almost expecting her to be on the line, almost praying. 911. I whispered, "Are you there?" Nothing, just the hum of the monitors, the faint creak of the building settling, the shadows clinging in the corners, unmoving. I wanted to leave, to walk out into the street and never come back. But something held me there. Fear, yes, but also curiosity, the compulsion to know, to hear, to answer. Hours passed. Each ring of the phones, each beep of the monitors felt like a heartbeat. The station itself seemed alive, breathing, waiting, and sometimes in the silence, I thought I could hear it, the faintest whisper, almost at the edge of hearing. "Can you hear me?" I tried to dismiss it as a phantom, my imagination reacting to too many hours alone. But I couldn't. The echoes lingered, persistent, intimate. They brushed along my mind. Something had attached itself to me, followed me from that apartment into this building. And now I wasn't sure where it ended, or if it ever would. I called the chief the next day. I told him I'd had a technical issue, that the line had gone dead. I didn't mention the voice. I didn't mention the whispers in the shadows, or the way the walls seemed to bend just slightly, or the way my reflection sometimes lingered longer than it should. No one believed me, and in some ways I was relieved, because if they had, they would have taken me out of the station, and I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. I stayed that night, sat at my desk, lights low, monitors flickering. Every so often, the phone would ring. Unknown number. My hand shook as I picked it up, and each time, silence. Nothing but the pressure of presence, just at the edges of hearing, was a ways there, and then it spoke again. "Can you hear me?" I froze. My voice was gone. My body froze. My mind screamed to hang up, to run, to escape. But I couldn't. "Yes," I whispered, barely audible. "I can hear you." "Good," she said, her voice soft now, patient, deliberate. "You're listening. That's enough. For now." Then nothing. I stayed at my desk long after my shift ended, staring at the dark monitors. Shadows stretched in the corners, waiting, patient. I couldn't leave. I didn't want to. Something had attached itself to me, and I felt a perverse comfort in that, a terrible bond. The next morning, sunlight through the windows did nothing to relieve it. The station seemed smaller, tighter, the corners darker. And in the silence, I could still hear her voice, faintly, like a memory embedded in the air itself. "Can you hear me?" I realized then that my life had changed. I wasn't just a dispatcher anymore. I was a listener, a conduit. And whatever this was inside the walls now, inside the air, inside me. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to my core, that it wasn't done. Not by a long shot. It was just past midnight when the call came in. The kind of night where the wind feels too sharp and even a hum of fluorescent lights seems unnatural. I was midway through my shift, sipping a lukewarm cup of coffee, when the line rang. 911, what's your emergency? I said, voice steady. Too steady, perhaps, like I was trying to convince myself that nothing in the world could surprise me. The voice on the other end was young, maybe late teens or early 20s, but it was shaking. Please, you gotta help me, the caller gasped. There's no one supposed to be there at the farm. Please. I jotted down the location. A small abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of town. Run down, overgrown with weeds and vines clawing at the sagging walls. Officers had been called there before. Usually it was just kids sneaking in, smoking or trying to scare each other. But there was fear in her voice I couldn't ignore. Ma'am, I need you to calm down, I said, though my own chest tightened. Can you tell me exactly what's happening? It's noises. Scratches, creaks, doors, they slam themselves. She swallowed hard, breath coming in short, uneven gasps. I see shadows, moving, not like humans, watching me. I think they know I'm here. I felt my pen freeze over the notepad. The usual prank calls, the normal mischief, never sounded like this. There was no joking, no laughter hiding behind the fear. This was pure terror. Are you inside the farmhouse now? I asked. Yes. I didn't think I'd be trapped. Her voice cracked. I wanted to leave. Doors won't open. Windows locked. Something's out there. I blinked, confused. Locked windows? Are you sure? Yes. I tried. Her words stumbled over themselves. I thought maybe someone teens, playing a joke. No, it's wrong. Not human. Watching me. Everywhere. I scribbled notes, forcing myself to stay calm. Officers are on their way. Stay calm. Do not move from where you are. Can you hide somewhere safe? I can try, she whispered. But they follow me when I move. Sometimes I see them in mirrors. Sometimes just shadows flicker behind the furniture in corners. Her breath hitched a soft, almost inaudible sob. I pressed gently. You're doing well. Keep on the line. Just keep talking to me. Can you tell me what they look like? They're wrong. Not human. Bodies bend too far. Limbs too long. They move like smoke, but hard. Like they don't obey the rules. I don't want to see them, but they're watching. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Something about the way she said it, how she described the impossible, the unnatural, made every hair on my arm stand on end. I had heard kids scream about hauntings before, thought they were just exaggerating. But this was different. Stay where you are. Focus on something solid. I said, trying to anchor her to reality. Touch a table, a wall, something you can feel. That's your tether. Okay, table, she whispered. The words were breathy, almost fading. And then a sound, not over the phone, not in my office, but in my chest, a low, dragging noise, deliberate. My stomach tightened. I could almost feel the rhythm of it, like someone or something was moving just beyond what I could see. Ma'am, are you okay? I asked, did you hear that? Yes. Her voice was panicked, breaking. It closer now, dragging floorboards. They can't. Don't want to see them. I swallowed hard. The hair on the back of my neck rose. Just stay where you are. Don't look. Keep touching the table. Officers are almost there. Can you hear them? She shook. I could almost hear through the line. I think, no. It's watching. Not like a person. Waiting. Patient. Always. Watching. I gritted my teeth. I wanted to tell her she was safe. That help was coming. That the officers would flush out whatever pranksters or trespassers were in the farmhouse. But deep down, I felt that familiar squeeze in my chest. The one that comes when fear is pure elemental. A creak. A thump. I almost imagined it, but I couldn't be sure. I can't stop seeing them, she whispered. Corners bend, shadows move. Sometimes I think they're inside the walls, inside me. I press gently, voice softer, urgent. Breathe. Focus on the table. Count your breaths with me. In 2, 3, 4. Okay, she gasped, and I could hear the faint sound of trembling hands sliding along a wooden surface. The line went quiet for a moment. Then her voice, barely audible, "I hear something at the door." "Don't turn around. Don't move. Officers are there. Stay calm." "I can't stop watching. They're closer." Her words were jagged, broken. I could feel the fear leaching into me, cold, heavy, almost physical. I had to remind myself to breathe, to stay professional, to stay alive in my own mind. I radioed the units on the way, my voice shaking just enough to reveal my own tension. Unit 7, priority call. Possible trespassers, abandoned farmhouse. Female caller trapped inside. Proceed with caution. "Yes, dispatch," came the reply. I stayed on the line, listening to the faint, almost imperceptible sound she described. Scraping floors, soft knocks, shadowy movements just at the edge of her perception. I could hear it too in a way, not physically, but in the low hum of dread that filled the room. That they're right there, watching. Her whisper was so thin, so fragile, it almost disappeared into the line. "Don't move. Keep touching the table," I urged. My own hands were tight over the console, nails digging into my palms. I didn't dare look over my shoulder, didn't dare imagine what it could be, but I could feel the presence. A soft thud echoed over the phone. My stomach dropped. Not playful, not clumsy, deliberate. I could almost feel it pressing in on the line, pressing into the room with her. "Can you see them?" I asked gently, knowing the answer would not be what I hoped. No, if I turn, they vanish. But I know they're there, always watching. Always. I don't want them to see me. Please. The line filled with silence. Then a single whisper, deliberate, chilling. "Go away." Her sobs rose quietly, ragged, almost breaking. I counted the minutes, clinging to her voice, counting her breaths, hoping the officers were moving faster than time could drag. And then I heard the front door open. "Officers," I said, relief rushing through me. "They're here. Stay calm." There was a soft rush, the shuffle of feet, voices outside. A pause. Then a quiet, frightened voice, hers. "Are they gone?" "Yes," I said quickly. "You're safe now. Officers are with you." I stayed on the line until confirmation came from the officers. She was alive. She was trembling, yes, terrified, but she was safe. And then the farmhouse was silent. The line went dead. I leaned back in my chair, hands shaking, heart hammering. I had heard enough hoaxes, enough prank calls to know the difference. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't teens with flashlights. The fear in her voice, the impossibility of what she described, the unnatural rhythm of the sounds. It was all too real. The station felt colder after that. Shadows seemed deeper, longer. The hum of the fluorescent lights carried a strange tension, like the night itself remembered her fear. Even now, I think about the farmhouse. The dark corners, the impossible shadows, the soft, dragging sound. I remember the way she whispered, trembling, over the line, convinced she was being watched. I keep a log of all calls. The officers wrote reports. Checked the farmhouse. Nothing. No sign of anyone or anything, other than the worn floors, the overgrown yard, the sagging walls. And yet, I can still hear in my mind the scratching, the soft thumps, the shadows flickering just beyond sight. And sometimes late at night, when the station is empty, I swear I can feel someone or something watching from the corners of the room, waiting, because fear has a way of lingering. And I think, so do they? I thought the farmhouse call was the peak of my shift, the worst the night could throw at me. I was wrong. After the initial panic, after the officers cleared the farmhouse, I returned to the console with a sense of false calm. I told myself it was over, that I had handled it, that the fear, the primal, crawling fear in the caller's voice, would stay at that farm, and I would go home, drink cold coffee and forget. But the night had other plans. The line rang again. Unknown number. I answered with a standard greeting, voice steady. 911, what's your emergency? A soft static answered me. Just a hiss, high-pitched at first, then deeper, like it was listening before speaking. And then the whisper, please don't leave me. The voice was the same as the girl from the farmhouse. I froze. My stomach twisted. The hair on my arm stood on end. I told myself it couldn't be her. She was safe. The officers had confirmed. But every instinct screamed otherwise. "Ma'am, is that you?" I whispered. "Yes," she breathed. "I didn't leave. I can't. They follow me." I gripped the phone tighter. The static grew louder, wrapping her voice in a strange distortion. It was still her, unmistakably, but something about the tone was wrong, stretched, hollow, like the words had been filtered through a long tunnel, bent and reshaped before reaching me. What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, professional. My hands shook against the console. "They move differently now," she whispered, voice trembling. "Shadows bend, floors, walls, furniture. Everything is wrong. They stretch when I look away. Their limbs too long, too many joints, like they don't belong in this world." I scribbled notes frantically, trying to ground myself. The lines of the call log blurred before my eyes. The hum of the monitors in the station felt louder, harsher. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to breathe, to anchor to reality. "They're whispering too," she continued. "Sometimes it's my voice, sometimes something else. I don't understand." I try to ignore it, but it creeps into my ears, into my head. I feel it even when I close my eyes. I swallowed hard. My stomach sank. I had never encountered anything like this in my training. Calls of fear, calls of terror. Yes, but not this. Not something impossible, bending perception itself. "Can you describe what you see?" I asked gently, forcing myself to maintain a calm that I didn't feel. "I can't," she whispered. "I try, but walls breathe, floors ripple, shadows flicker and fold. The corners, they stretch like space itself is wrong. And the whispers, they're coming from everywhere and nowhere." I felt it then, a cold prickle at the base of my skull, the same instinctive warning I had felt at the farmhouse. I could almost hear myself, faintly, underneath the distortion, breathing, whispering, a rhythm that matched hers but didn't belong to any human voice. "Stay calm. Focus on one thing," I said. "A chair, a wall, something real. Can you do that?" "Yes," she breathed. "I touching desk." The static swelled, swallowing her words, reshaping them. I strained to hear, and in the distortion there was a faint hiss, almost like a sigh, but deliberate, almost thinking. "They follow me when I move," she whispered. "Even if I stop, even if I close my eyes, I feel it behind me, stretching, waiting, watching." I pressed gently. "Breathe with me. In 2, 3, 4. I can't stop seeing them." Her words faltered. "Even when I look at something solid, they appear. Not fully, not in a way my eyes can understand. But I know they're there. Always. Waiting. Always." I felt my chest tighten. I had trained for emergencies, for accidents, for crimes, for human terror. But this was something else. Something that lived in perception itself. That used fear to reach across distance. They talk," she whispered. "Not words, not language. Just sounds. Echoes. Sometimes my own voice. Sometimes something else. I can feel it echo inside me, in my bones, in the floor, in the walls. It waits." The phone line warped again. The static rose to a low hum. I could almost feel it vibrating through the receiver, through my hands, through the small metal console. I imagined shadows stretching the corners of my office, my own vision bending slightly. "Listen to me," I said. "You are not alone. Officers are nearby. You are safe." "I don't think they care about that," she whispered. "I don't think anything can stop them. I don't want to die like this. I can't stop hearing them." Her words, distorted to the static, sounded almost like two voices speaking at once. Hers and something else, something that shouldn't exist. I felt a wave of nausea, but I held on to the phone. Couldn't let go. Couldn't let her be swallowed by the static alone. "They are near the windows," she continued. "Sometimes I see shapes press against the glass. Sometimes just shadows moving when the light shifts. They They bend the light, the air, the floorboards, everything. I don't understand. Her voice broke. She sobbed quietly, the sound muffled by the distortion, the static, and then a whisper, a different one, not her voice, low, insistent, curling into my ears. Look, don't look, they are here. My stomach churned. I pressed my free hand against my desk, grounding myself, trying to remember the hum of fluorescent lights, the cold metal of the console, the world I knew. And yet, even in the station, I felt it, that same creeping presence she described, watching, waiting, whispering. They move differently when I look away, she whispered. I don't know what they are. Limbs bend, fingers twist, faces, not faces, just glimpses, never complete, always wrong. I forced her to stay with me. Focus on the desk. Your hand on the desk. Keep counting your breaths. Okay, she whispered, but the words were jagged, torn apart by the static. I felt her fear radiate across the line, and for the first time, I could almost feel in my own chest a cold, pressing weight that wrapped around my ribs and tightened my lungs. The whispers grew louder, almost in sync with her breath, distorted, impossible. Sometimes her voice, sometimes not. I couldn't tell which was real. They are in the corners, she whispered, always in the corners. I can feel them stretching, moving, waiting. I don't want to move, but I have to stay still. Listen to me, I said. My voice felt weak, trembling, but I clung to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a loud thump, not from her side, from my side. My console rattled. I nearly dropped the phone. I looked around. The office was empty. Shadows stretched along the walls, flickering where they shouldn't. The hum of the lights shifted, dropping slightly, like the station itself was breathing differently. Did you hear that? I whispered, barely audible. Yes, she gasped. Closer than before. Always closer. I don't want to see them. I don't want to die like this. I pressed my forehead to the receiver. You won't die. Stay with me. Keep counting. Keep touching the desk. You are safe. Focus on that. I can't, her voice trembled. They know I am scared. They watching, waiting. I don't understand. I don't want to be alone with them. I stayed with her for what felt like hours, counting breaths, grounding her to reality, to the desk, to the solid things in the room. The static and whispers consumed the line, curling around her voice, bending it, fracturing it. And yet, through the impossible distortion, I could hear her fear, pure, unfiltered, and it crawled along my skin, like the shadows themselves had followed her words into my office. Finally, officers confirmed arrival at the farmhouse's perimeter again. No trespassers, no new disturbances. The girls panicked, the whispers, the impossible shadows, all invisible to anyone else. The line went dead. Silence. But I didn't feel relief. I felt the lingering cold, the brush of distorted whispers in my skull, the faint echo of shapes moving just out of sight. And I knew they weren't gone. Not really. They had followed her, or her fear, or the static. I sat at the console long after the shift ended. Lights low, monitors flickering, listening for the whispers that never fully left. I could feel them in the corners, always at the edge of vision, always waiting. And I realized with a chill I couldn't shake that some calls never really end. They stay with you, pressed into your skull, folded into the shadows. And sometimes in the silence between static and breath, I think I can still hear her voice. Can you hear me? I didn't sleep after that second call. I didn't even try. By the time the sun came up, I was still at the console, staring at the blinking red light on the phone, the same line she called from. I had replayed her voice in my head 100 times. The distortion, the whispers, the way her words bent at the end, like someone else was trying to speak through her. The farmhouse had gone quiet again. The officers who checked it out the night before said the place was empty, just peeling wallpaper, collapsed floorboards, and dust thick enough to smother sound. But something in their voices over the radio had unsettled me. They didn't sound convinced. By noon, I got the report. The officers want to go back for a deeper search. They said they'd found signs, movement, things out of place that shouldn't have been. I stayed on the line as they made their way down the dirt road that led to the farmhouse. The dispatcher in me was supposed to be calm, detached, professional. But something had changed since those calls. It wasn't just about duty anymore. It felt personal. Like her fear had latched onto me. Static crackled in the background as one of the officers, Ramirez, checked in. Dispatch. We're approaching property. Same as last time. No vehicles. Front door still busted in. I swallowed hard. Copy that. Ramirez, proceed with caution. I could hear their boots crunch through the dry grass, the distant calls of crows echoing across the empty fields. The farmhouse was just a skeleton now. Bare beams, sagging roof, and a front porch that groaned under the weight of every step. The radio crackled again. Dispatch inside now. Place smells like mildew and rot. It's colder than outside. Colder? I asked. Yeah, Ramirez said after a pause. Like unnaturally cold. No wind. But feels like we walked into a freezer. I felt a strange weight press against my chest. Proceed. Keep your lights on. I could hear the sound of their flashlights clicking on, the low hum of movement, with creaking under boots. Then a faint sound in the background. Something dragging, slow and deliberate. Ramirez, I said quietly. You hear that? Copy. Thought it was Stevens behind me, but his voice trailed off. Stevens, it you? A pause. Then Stevens replied, his voice low, uncertain. No, not moving. Silence. The kind that makes your stomach knot. The dragging stopped. Ramirez, status. I said, my voice trembling slightly. We're fine, he replied, but his tone didn't sound fine. Just found something odd. There are footprints here. Bare feet. Small. Probably the girls. My pen froze over the notepad. She wasn't barefoot when officers first arrived last night. I know, he said, but they start at the front door, then stopped halfway through the living room, like she just disappeared. I didn't respond. I could hear the faint click of their flashlights sweeping across the room, the soft thump of their steps. Then Stevens spoke again. Ramirez, you see this? What? There was a pause. Then Ramirez's voice returned, strained. Dispatch, we got movement. Not sure what it is. Shadows keep shifting when the lights move. Not normal reflection, like they're moving ahead of us. My throat tightened. Repeat, Ramirez. Are you saying the shadows are moving on their own? He hesitated. Affirmative. They don't match our lights. The sound of shuffling came through the radio. Then a low, breathy exhale that wasn't theirs. I leaned closer to the speaker, listening, not sure if I wanted to hear more or less. Ramirez, I said again, you have visual contact with Stevens? Yeah, he said, voice tight, but he looks pale. You okay, Stevens? I'm fine, Stevens said, but his voice was faint, hollow. Just feel like something's off. The air's heavy. Feels like the floor's breathing. The floor, breathing. I didn't even write that part down. I couldn't. A few seconds later, there was a muffled sound, metal clattering to the floor. Ramirez cursed under his breath. Jesus. Stevens, what the hell was that? My flashlight, Stevens said quickly. It slipped, but I could hear in his voice. He was lying. His flashlight hadn't slipped. It had been pulled. I could hear them both breathing now, shallow and quick, trying not to make noise but failing. The wooden beams groaned under invisible weight. Somewhere, a door creaked open, slow and deliberate. Dispatch, Ramirez whispered. We're moving toward the back of the house, seeing more signs of disturbance. Chairs overturned. Dust is disturbed like someone was running around in circles. Any visual on the suspect? No, but he trailed off. What? I pressed. There's writing, he said quietly. On the wall. Looks like it was carved in. I gripped the edge of my desk. What does it say? Static filled the channel for a few seconds. Then faintly his voice came back. It says, they watched through the glass. A shiver ran down my spine. The phrase echoed the caller's words from last night. The line went silent again, except for faint breathing. I could hear Ramirez muttering to himself, maybe a prayer, then footsteps. Slow. Not theirs. Dispatch. Ramirez whispered, voice shaking. Something's upstairs. I felt my own heart hammering in my chest. Do not engage. Wait for backup. No time, he said, and I could hear the creak of the old staircase beneath their boots. We need to know if she's still here. Every step they took groaned louder than the last, like the house itself was warning them to stop. Then I heard it. The faint, unmistakable sound of whispering. Low, layered, overlapping voices. Not clear, not human, but rhythmic. Ramirez, are you hearing that? He didn't respond. Ramirez, I repeated, louder. Static. Then his voice, distant, almost dreamlike. It's coming from the bedroom. I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry. Describe what you see. He took a shaky breath. There's a mirror, cracked, big enough to cover most of the wall. There's something behind it. Movement. Stevens's voice broke in, trembling. It's shifting, like the glass is melting. Then came a sound I'll never forget. A sharp, splitting crack, followed by a gasp. The mirror shattered. Ramirez! I shouted. Report. Static. Then, finally, Ramirez again. We're fine. Just mirror broke. But there's something else. What? Footprints, he said softly. In the dust. They're moving. Right now. Like someone's walking, but there's no one there. The radio hissed. The static thicker than before. They stopped mid-path. Just vanish. I stared at the phone, unable to speak. They're small, he continued. Barefoot. Same as before. They walked right up the window and stopped. No exit. No sign of her outside. Just gone. The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, Ramirez spoke again, quieter than before. We need to get out of here. Feels like we're being watched. Affirmative. I whispered, even though I wasn't sure he could hear me anymore. The line crackled. For a split second, I thought I heard the girl's voice through static, soft, distant, whispering, "Don't let them see you." Then the radio went dead. When Ramirez finally called back 15 minutes later, his voice was calm, too calm. They were outside again, safe, no sign of the girl. No explanation for the footprints or the mirror or the cold air that lingered long after they left. They filed their report. Rational words. Empty explanations. Possible trespassing. Optical illusion. Paranormal speculation. Unfounded. But I could hear it in their voices when they spoke to me privately later. They didn't believe their own words. That night, after the shift ended, I stayed behind. Alone. The station was quiet except for the faint hum of the lights. I sat at my console, staring at the phone, waiting for it to ring again. The clock ticked past midnight. I thought about the footprints, the way they stopped mid-path, like the girl had simply ceased to exist. I thought about the mirror, the whispers, the cold air that shouldn't have been there. And somewhere in that silence, I realized something that made my blood run cold. When Ramirez described the footprints, he said there were two sets, one smaller, one larger, both barefoot, but only one set stopped. The other kept walking toward the mirror. I thought I had escaped that farmhouse. I thought the vanishing, the shadows, the footprints that ended mid-path were behind me. I was wrong. It started the night after the officers returned. I had tried to sleep, or at least sit quietly at home, but my phone rang. Unknown number. My chest tightened. I answered, voice trembling despite my efforts at professionalism. 911, what's your emergency? A pause. Then, that familiar, trembling whisper, they're back. I froze. My fingers gripped the receiver, so hard my knuckles whitened. Who is this? It's me, the voice said. I can't leave. They're watching, always. You said it was over, but they wait. They follow. Don't look away. My pulse raced. I should have hung up. I should have thrown the phone across the room and locked the doors. But I couldn't. I had to know. Where are you now? I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm. The farm, she whispered. Same place, not the same place. It's different. The wind moves wrong. Shadows crawl, walls breathe. I rubbed my eyes. My hand shook. Different how? The house stretches, she said. Rooms I never saw before. Hallways that loop. Doors that shouldn't be here. I can't find the front. I can't leave. I swallowed hard. This wasn't just fear anymore. This was something that bent reality itself. And yet, I could hear the panic in her voice. The absolute terror. Focus on one thing. I urged. A chair, a wall, something solid. Can you do that? Yes, she whispered. The table, touching it. But they're everywhere. They move when I blink. I hear voices. Low, impossible, echoing, mocking. My own voice, but not mine. I shivered. I'd heard her describe similar things before. Shadows bending. Whispers layering over each other. Limbs that twisted like smoke. But now, the calls came repeatedly. Every hour. Sometimes every few minutes. Each one more surreal than the last. They're in the ceilings now, she said softly. I hear them above me. Scratch, tap, breathing in rhythm with mine. I can't stop listening. I can't stop feeling them. I wanted to tell her to hang up, to call the officers again, but I didn't. Something held me to the line. The same weight that pressed against me when she first called from the farmhouse. Something unseen, patient, waiting. They watch through the windows, she continued. But sometimes they're inside, in the walls. I hear them moving behind me. Doors open, close, no wind, no hands. Just them. I leaned over the console, gripping it like a lifeline. Stay calm. Don't move. Keep touching the table. I can't stop seeing them, she whispered, voice shaking. Even in the mirrors, they're staring. Limbs bend, heads tilt, faces wrong, always wrong. I don't want to move, but I have to or they'll see me. I could hear my own breathing. Shallow, rapid. I could feel the tension in my shoulders, the tightness in my chest. The station around me felt smaller, the shadows stretching toward me. I imagined the corners crawling, reaching for me. I think they follow me now, she said. Even when I hang up, I feel them, watching, waiting. I don't know if I'll ever leave. If I call it again, I pressed a hand to the receiver. You're safe as long as you stay with me. Keep talking. That's the tether. Do you understand? Yes, she whispered. I think I understand. But static cracked over the line. Her voice distorted. It stretched, folded back on itself. For a moment, I heard her words repeated, layered, echoing. Then another, lower voice underneath hers, almost singing, almost whispering. I hear them, she gasped. Not just my voice, their voices, impossible, soft and cruel. They wait for me to blink. They wait for me to look away. I gritted my teeth. Keep touching the table. Keep counting breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4. The call ended. Seconds later, it rang again. Unknown number. I swallowed and picked up. They move differently now, she whispered immediately. Slower, like they're considering. Limbs twist, faces split, rooms shift. I don't know which way is forward. I could feel the hair on my arms stand. My stomach churned. I had heard the reports from the officers. The footprints, the objects moved, the mirror that shattered on its own. But hearing it from her again, live, impossible, real, made my chest ache with dread. Are you there? I asked. Stay calm. Focus. Breathe. I can't, she whispered. I see them in the walls, the ceilings, sometimes the floor. They bend the house around me. Wait for me to fall. Wait for me to blink. I don't want to. The static thickened, the voice splitting and layering, echoing in ways that shouldn't have been possible. My fingers tightened around the receiver. The edges of the station seemed darker, corners stretching, shadows pooling where they shouldn't. They follow my eyes, she continued. Even if I close them, even if I stop thinking, they know. They know. I gritted my teeth, forcing calm I didn't feel. Keep talking. I'm here. Focus. Table. Desk. Count breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't look, she whispered. I hear them. Their voices, singing my name, twisting it. mocking me, low, deep, impossible. I felt a cold rise along my spine. Something was pressing at the edges of my perception. Something unseen, watching, waiting, patient. Then the line went dead. I sat there, trembling, my fingers white around the receiver, my chest tight. I wanted to call the officers back, to check the farmhouse again, to make sense of what was happening. But I didn't. I couldn't. Something had attached itself to that call, to her, to the farmhouse, and I was tangled in it. The calls continued throughout the night. Each time, the descriptions grew more impossible. Rooms that twisted, shadows that breathed, objects that moved against gravity. Whispers layered over whispers. I wrote everything down. Every word, every distorted sound, every pause, every breath. They bend the air now, she said once. I reach for the door and it's farther away. The walls, they shift, they watch. I don't know what's real. I can't leave. I don't want to die. Not like this. I told her over and over. Focus on the desk. Stay calm. Breathe. But I could feel her panic in the line. In my chest. In the corners of the station. The air seemed heavier, colder, like the farmhouse itself had seeped into this building. They wait for me to blink, she said again. I don't know if I'll ever leave. I can hear them moving, always inside, outside, watching. Sometimes, I thought I heard the whispers myself. Faint, impossible, curling in the edges of the room. I shook my head, but they didn't stop. I realized then that her fear had crossed the line, not just through the phone, not just through her voice. It had seeped into me, the dread, the distortion, the impossible presence. I could feel it pressing in on me, watching, waiting, patient. By dawn, I was exhausted. Every muscle ached, every nerve burned, and still, the calls continued, each one layering a new element of impossibility, of dread. They walk through the walls, she whispered at one point. I don't see them, but I know they're there. The floor ripples beneath me. They wait. I wanted to end the calls, to disconnect, to pretend it was over, but I couldn't. Some instinct told me if I hung up, if I ignored them, she would vanish entirely. That presence would be free, unbound, and I couldn't allow that. Each call left me weaker, hollow, yet I stayed, listened, held the line, counted breaths, touched the desk, tried to anchor her to reality, and to some degree, myself as well. By the end of that endless night, I realized something terrifying. There was no end, no resolution. The farmhouse, the girl, the whispers, the impossible movements, they were no longer confined to one place. The dread had grown, multiplied, stretched across the line, across space, into my own perception. And I knew, with a clarity that chilled me to bone, that every call from here on out would bring something new, something impossible, something that would defy logic, reason, and reality itself. Because some things don't want to be explained. Some things just wait. And now, they were waiting for me. I was driving alone that night, the highway stretching out in front of me like a black ribbon under a weak, flickering streetlight. Rain had been falling off and on, so the asphalt glistened in patches, reflecting the occasional headlights from other cars, or the few that dared this road at such a late hour. I had the windows cracked just a little, the air cold and damp, brushing my skin in a way that made the hair on my arms stand up. I don't know why I decided to call it in. Maybe because I was nervous, and nervous people do dumb things. Maybe because I thought I was imagining things, and telling someone else might make the feeling go away. Or maybe because I wasn't imagining anything at all. It started as a faint whisper in my ear, or maybe just a shuffle, like someone sliding across the back seat behind me. I shook my head. I was alone. Of course I was alone. My wife had gone to her mother's for the weekend, and my dog was at the kennel, because I didn't want him to be wet and miserable. I was alone, and yet there was again the sound, a soft scrape, barely audible, but unmistakable if you focused. I glanced in the rear-view mirror. The back seat was empty, just the black leather, empty and cold. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. You're imagining things, I muttered out loud, my voice trembling more than I expected. I laughed at myself, a small, brittle laugh. but that laugh seemed to echo, too long, too hollow, as if the car itself was laughing back. Then the whisper came, just barely audible like a breath or sigh, right behind my shoulder. "Drive," it said. I slammed my hand against the horn. Nothing. No other cars, no other people. Just the rain. And my own heartbeat hammering against my ribs, loud enough to drown out everything else. I pulled over. The wet asphalt hissed under my tires, the streetlight above flickering like a dying candle. My hand shook as I picked up my phone and called 911. 911, what's your emergency? A calm voice asked. I don't know, I stammered. I think someone's in my car. My back seat, there's someone back there. The dispatcher sighed softly. Sir, are you alone in the vehicle? Yes. My voice cracked. I'm alone, but there's someone. I hear them. I can hear them. There was a pause. Just a pause. And then, sir, are you sure? Another sound interrupted her. This time, a low, dragging scrape coming from behind me. It made my stomach twist in knots. I looked in the mirror again, expecting, wanting to see something, anything, and there it was. Nothing. Just the empty seat, the damp black leather, glistening under the weak overhead light. I swallowed hard. I hear it, I said, voice tight. It's moving. I can hear it breathing. The dispatcher made another pause, more deliberate this time. Sir, are you on the highway near? I didn't listen. My hands were gripping the wheel so hard that my knuckles went white. My chest felt like it was being squeezed by something unseen. The scrape came again, closer now, almost under my seat. My teeth clenched. My stomach lurched. I wanted to leave. I wanted to drive away. But I was frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't even think straight. Then, softly, a voice, right behind my head, whispered my name. Michael. I jolted forward, my eyes snapping wide. The back seat, empty, cold, silent. The rain pattered against the windshield like it was laughing at me. I'm not joking. I shouted into the phone. Someone's here. I don't know how they got in. Another sound cut me off. This time it wasn't a scrape. It was a soft, wet thump like fingers dragging across the seat, across the leather, right behind me. I choked back a scream. Sir, the dispatcher's voice was tight now, calm but wary. Can you see anyone? No, I can't. I'm telling you, there's someone here. My voice broke again. Please, I don't know what to do. The line went silent for a moment. I thought maybe she hung up. Maybe she realized I was insane. And then I heard it, a soft, guttural sigh, right behind me, right at the back of my neck. I spun around. Nothing. The seat. Empty. My pulse racing, my hands slick with sweat. My eyes darted to the mirrors. Empty. Completely empty. I need you to stay calm, the dispatcher said finally. I'm sending an officer. Just stay on the line with me. Keep your doors locked. Do not get out of the car. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I nodded, my entire body trembling, and tried to focus on the sound of her voice. And then I heard it again, the soft, dragging movement from the back seat, closer than before, slow, deliberate, like someone was crawling forward, inch by inch, until they were right there. I couldn't breathe. My throat felt like sandpaper. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely grip the wheel. I tried to tell myself it was in my head. It had to be. I was imagining it. But the sound said otherwise. Michael, that whisper again, soft, wet, almost hungry. I slammed my eyes shut. Stop. Go away. Please. And then nothing. Silence. The rain, the weak of the car engine, my own frantic heartbeat. No whisper, no scrape. Just emptiness. I opened my eyes slowly. The back seat was empty. My hands were still trembling, my mouth dry, but nothing moved. I glanced in the mirror again, over and over, expecting, fearing, hoping to see something, anything. The dispatcher's voice brought me back. Sir, are you still there? Yes, I said, my voice shaking. I think it stopped. For now. I don't know. I don't know what it was. An officer's on the way. Just stay calm and stay in your car, she said. I nodded again, though it was meaningless. I kept glancing at the back seat, my eyes never leaving the mirror. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still there, just waiting, watching, breathing. I thought about driving away, getting off the highway, finding a gas station, somewhere, anywhere with light and people, but every instinct in me screamed not to. Not yet. Not until someone was with me. I kept the phone pressed to my ear, listening to her voice, focusing on the sound, anything to keep the dread from swallowing me whole. And then, almost imperceptibly, I heard it again, a soft, wet breathing coming from the back seat, right behind me. My hand flew to the horn, slamming it down as hard as I could. The sound echoed across the empty highway, bouncing off the wet asphalt, loud, deafening. I didn't care about waking anyone. I didn't care about anything. The whisper came again, faint, almost casual. Don't leave. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should drive, run, scream, or hide. My heart was hammering, my thoughts spinning, a cyclone of fear that I couldn't stop. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white, knuckles cracking, and waited, waiting for what I didn't know. And then I saw it, just a flash in the mirror, a dark shape, low, just behind driver's seat, moving. I swallowed hard, tried to blink it away, tried to tell myself it was a trick of the light, but it wasn't. It was real, and I was utterly, completely alone. I don't even remember when I stopped feeling safe in my own car. That night, after the first call, the highway didn't feel like asphalt and paint anymore. It felt alive, watching, waiting. Every shadow on the edge of my vision seemed too deliberate, too intentional, as if the darkness itself was moving in sync with me. The dispatcher's voice over the phone became the only anchor to reality, the only sound that reminded me I wasn't completely lost in my own terror. I told her what I saw, or thought I saw, though the words came out shaky, jumbled, almost like I was talking to a fog of fear. There's shadows, I said, my voice low, tight. They keep shifting. Sometimes they're in the trees, sometimes in the lanes next to me. Sometimes I swear they move with the car. She paused. A long, careful pause that made me think she was trying to decide if I was having a panic attack or if something real was happening. Sir, what do you mean they move with the car? I don't know. I admitted, my hands tightening on the wheel until my knuckles cracked. Every time I glance at the side mirror, the shadows are there, just sliding alongside me, and then they disappear. But I see them. I see them in the dark. Always, always in the corner of my eyes. The highway stretched out endlessly. The lines glowed faintly under the intermittent flicker of the streetlights, but they didn't make me feel safe. They felt like markers, guiding me into something I didn't want to find. The rain had stopped, but the mist rising from the asphalt made everything hazy, and every reflection in the wet road looked wrong. Curves would appear where none should exist. I would swear I saw the road bending inward, swallowing itself, then snapping back to normal. I'm not imagining this. I said again, more firmly this time. Something is following me, or maybe it's the road itself. The way it bends, the way it twists, I can't explain it. It doesn't make sense, but it's happening. There was another long pause. Sir, are there any other cars around you? I looked again, my heart hammering. For a second, just a single second, I thought I saw headlights far behind me, but as I blinked, they were gone. No, I said finally. Nothing. Just me, just the shadows, and this road. It doesn't make sense. I try to focus on something solid. The dashboard, the seatbelt latch, the little plastic buttons that never moved, but nothing felt real. The shadows had a rhythm, a pulse. They followed me with patience, sliding along the edges of the road, stretching when I looked directly at them, retreating when I tried to confront them. Then, the impossible happened. A curve appeared in the highway that shouldn't have been there. I could see in the map on my phone. Straight road for miles. But my headlights lit up a bend, a sharp, unnatural curve. I gripped the wheel, hard in my throat, and I drove through it. When I looked back at the map, the curve was gone. The straight road resumed like nothing had happened. Sir, the dispatcher asked, her voice tight now. Are you still there? Yes, I said. though my voice cracked. The road, it's changing. Curves appear and disappear. And the shadows, they're still there. Always there. I swallowed, my throat dry. My hand were trembling, but I gripped the wheel tighter. The car felt heavier now, like the darkness pressing against it, waiting for me to make a mistake. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and frantic, echoing inside the small space of the cabin. "Sir, can you describe the shadows?" she asked. "Anything about them? Color, shape, movement?" I tried. I really tried. But the more I looked, the less sense it made. Sometimes they were tall, looming like trees stretched impossibly high. Sometimes they were low, slinking along the pavement like black smoke. Sometimes, when I glanced in the rearview mirror, I thought I saw eyes, tiny, glinting, and hungry, and then they would vanish. They're not consistent. I admit it. Sometimes I swear I see a figure, humanoid, crouched in the trees, watching me, and then I blink, and it's gone, like it was never there. I don't know what's real anymore. The dispatcher was quiet. I could imagine her, probably gripping her headset, try and keep calm while I spiral further into whatever nightmare this was. "I need you to stay on the line," she said finally. "Help is on the way. Just keep talking to me. Tell me everything you see." I nodded, though she couldn't see me, and I started describing. Every flicker of shadow, every bend in the road, every impossible curve that appeared under my headlights, every whisper of movement behind me, every chill that crawled along my spine. And then came the sound. Not a scrape this time, not a whisper, a low, rolling hum, almost like a growl, coming from all around me. The kind of sound that shouldn't exist in the middle of a deserted highway. I froze, listening, trying to pinpoint it. It shifted, moving from one side of the car to the other, always just out of reach. "I hear it," I whispered into the phone. A sound, a low hum. "It's moving, all around me." The dispatcher's voice was calm, almost too calm. "Sir, are you in motion? Are you driving?" "Yes." I snapped, frustrated, terrified. "I'm driving. I have to. I don't know if I can stop. The road changes if I stop." I could feel it then. The car beneath me felt different, heavier, like the tires were sinking into the asphalt, into the darkness itself. I could feel the pull, subtle at first, then stronger, like the road was reaching up to claim me. I pressed harder on the accelerator, but the speedometer barely moved. "Sir, where exactly are you?" the dispatcher asked. I glanced at the GPS again. The map was useless. Roads twisted into shapes that didn't exist. Miles stretched impossibly long, the horizon bending into itself. "I don't know." I admitted, it doesn't make sense. The map, the road, it's wrong. I heard the hum again, closer this time, and the shadows, they weren't just at the edges anymore. They moved in ways that shouldn't be possible. A figure slid across the lane ahead, just enough to make me swerve. Another flickered in the rear-view mirror, just behind the headrest, moving impossibly fast. I blinked. Gone. The dispatcher asked me if I could pull over, but I couldn't. My instinct screamed that stopping would be worse, that the shadows, the road, the impossible bends, they fed on hesitation. So I kept driving, heart hammering, eyes darting, trying to follow the painted lines that seemed to twist and warp under my headlights. Then came the headlights. Far ahead, in the distance, another car, a relief maybe, or maybe another trap. As I approached, the lights flickered, distorted, like the other vehicle was not real. It appeared, disappeared, and reappeared, always just ahead, always keeping the distance exact enough to keep me focused on it, distracted from the shadows crawling along the sides. I called it out to the dispatcher. "There's a car ahead. Someone else. Maybe help. I'm following it." But as I got closer, the car didn't exist. It wasn't there. The headlights vanished. The asphalt was empty, stretching endlessly, just me and the shadows, and the impossible, shifting curves of the road. The hum was louder now, vibrating through the car, through my chest, like the darkness itself was resonating, warning me, laughing at me. I could feel it in my bones. And then, suddenly, silence. Too complete, too sudden. The kind of silence that comes right before something terrible appears. And I knew it was behind me, not the shadows at the edges, not some trick of the headlights. Something solid, impossible, waiting, moving closer with every heartbeat. I gripped the wheel until my hands bled, knuckles cracking, and I dared not look. I didn't want to see, but I could feel it. The dispatcher asked if I was okay. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My chest heaved, my stomach knotted, and my mind screamed in 1,000 ways at once. The road ahead was a blur, the shadows crawling in closer, the impossible bends of asphalt twisting around me, and the thing behind me, patient, inevitable, breathing, waiting. I kept driving. I couldn't stop. Not yet. Not until... I didn't know. Not until someone, anyone, could make it stop. But it didn't matter. The highway had already taken me. I don't remember exactly when the fear turned into something else. Something heavier, like the weight of water pressing down on me from all sides. By the time the call ended, the road was empty, the shadows gone, and yet I knew I wasn't safe. I knew I'd never be safe again. I woke up, or maybe I just opened my eyes, in a car I didn't recognize. The seat was wet, the leather cold, and the smell of rain was heavy in the air. No headlights, no highway, no endless asphalt twisting beneath me. Just blackness. I reached for my phone. It was gone. Not missing, not fallen, just gone. I tried to remember where I was. My mind was foggy, fragmented. Pieces of the night scattered across my memory like shards of glass. The hum of the impossible road, the shifting shadows, the whispers behind me. It all felt like it had never happened, and yet I could feel it. Deep in my chest, in my stomach, in the hollow of my skull, I could feel it. I tried to call out. My voice sounded strange, distant, as if it belonged to someone else. "Hello," I said. Only my own echo replied. Then I noticed the seatbelt, fastened, taut across my chest. I didn't remember doing it. I didn't remember putting it on. My hand shook as I tried to unbuckle it. And it didn't release at first. The mechanism clicked and groaned, reluctant, like it had been holding something else, someone else. Inside, I leaned back, heart hammering, and tried to think. I tried to make sense of what had happened. The dispatcher's voice, the shadows, the hum, the impossible curves in the highway, the car behind me, the one that wasn't there, and then the vanishing. I had vanished. Or maybe I hadn't. Maybe the car had, maybe the highway had. I tried to remember her voice. The dispatcher, calm, precise, trying to guide me through the chaos. But when I reached the phone, when I reached the line that had kept me tethered to reality, there was only silence. Thick, heavy, oppressive silence. Then I heard it. Soft, faint, almost gentle at first. A whisper. A sound I knew without recognizing. A sound that came from the space just behind me, wrapping around me, inside me. Michael. My stomach dropped. My hands gripped the edges of the seat. Fingernails digging into leather that felt colder than it should. I whispered back, "Hello? Who's there?" Silence. Then the whisper again, closer this time. "Don't leave." I swallowed, dry and bitter, and tried to unbuckle the seatbelt again. My fingers trembled so violently that I nearly gave up. I don't understand," I said aloud, voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" The whisper came again, a little louder, almost impatient. "You know, you've always known." A shiver crawled up my spine, and I realized I did know. I had always known, deep down, that the shadows had never been just shadows, that the road had never been just asphalt, that the hum, the whispers, the shapes sliding along the edge of vision, had been real, and that I hadn't really left. Not ever. I tried the door handle. Locked. All of them. The car wasn't mine anymore. I wasn't its driver. I was something else. Something smaller. Trapped. A passenger in a vessel that didn't belong to me. The whispers continued, now layered, as if multiple voices were pressing against the walls of the car, pressing against my mind. "You can't leave. You're ours. You've always been ours." Panic set in, twisting around me, constricting my chest. I pounded on the doors, on the windows. Nothing, just the whispers, patient, watching, waiting, and I realized a voice on the other end of the line. The dispatcher, she was gone, and yet I could still feel her, somewhere in the spaces between the whispers, still listening, still tethered to me, still afraid. I tried to remember the highway, the curves, the impossible shapes, the flashes of light that weren't there, the other car, the shadows sliding along the edge of the lane, my own fear, my own voice shaking over the phone. It all felt like a lifetime ago, but the memory burned bright, sharp, vivid, and I understood then that the road hadn't ended, that the call hadn't ended, that the story hadn't ended. It was continuing. I could hear her voice again, faint, distant, somewhere through the whispers. "Michael, can you hear me?" I tried to answer. My voice came out wrong, hollow, like I was speaking through water. "Yes, I'm here." "Good," she said. Calm, precise, terrifyingly calm. "We need to finish this. You need to let go." Let go. The words twisted in my mind. Let go of what? The road? The car? Myself? The fear? I didn't understand. I tried to move my hands, my feet, but the seatbelt held me tight. The whispers laughed then, low, wet, guttural. Not one voice, many voices. Many waiting, many patient. Surrounding me, watching me. I felt the hum again, low, vibrating through the seat, through the car, through me. It was a reminder, a warning, a promise. I wasn't supposed to understand. I wasn't supposed to resist. I was supposed to be taken. The darkness around the car deepened. Or maybe it was just me. Maybe I was the darkness now. Shadows pressed against the edges of the windows, pressing closer, sliding along the glass, pressing inside the car until I could feel them in my chest, crawling in my veins, twisting inside my skull. I screamed then, and the sound was swallowed instantly, devoured by the whispers, by the hum, by the road that never ended, and in the silence that followed. I realized the final stop had already come. I wasn't going anywhere. I never would. The whispers pressed against me, closer, and I understood. I was the story now, the dispatcher, the voice on the other end of the line, the one who would try to guide me through the impossible road. She would remember me, tell the story, and somewhere in her memory it would continue. The line would stay open. The call would never end. And I was gone, not in the way you think. Not dead, not missing. Just gone, absorbed into the edges of the road, into the whispers, into the shadows that waited for the next person, for the next call, for the next story. I was part of it now, and it was part of me. The hum, the shapes, the impossible curves, they were alive, and I was inside them, inside it forever. I could feel the shape of the highway in my chest. I could feel the pressure of the shadows along my spine. I could hear the faint echo of my own voice, calling for help, repeating endlessly in the darkness. And I knew, I had always known, that no one would come. No one ever came. Somewhere, the dispatcher's voice continued to tremble over the line, trying to hold on to what I had been, trying to say what she could. But the whispers were stronger, patient, inevitable. They slid across the road, across the line, across her mind, and she could feel me there, just out of reach, just beyond understanding. And the final stop didn't exist. The highway never ends. The call never ends. The story never ends. All that remains is a hum, the whispers, the shadows sliding in the corner of your vision, waiting for the next one to answer. I am still here, and so is the road. I never thought a park could feel wrong at night. I had walked past them countless times during the day. Sunlight spilling across the swings, the slide, the metal bars glinting in warmth, children's laughter echoing across the grass. But midnight changes everything. Midnight twists the familiar into something unrecognizable. The call came in just past midnight. The voice on the other end was tight, hurried, almost shaking. There's children crying in the park, but no one's there. Please, can you send someone? I tried to keep calm, tried to write it off as a prank or a misunderstanding. Parks were quiet at night, yeah, but empty playgrounds didn't normally echo with sobbing. My finger hovered over the dispatcher button, heart skipping. "Ma'am," Are you sure it's not a recording or maybe a TV? Anyone else around? No, she whispered, almost afraid of being overheard. It's just crying, like kids. Alone, please. I don't know what to do. I tried to reassure her, though the chill crawling up my spine told me I was lying to both of us. Help is on the way. Officers will check it out. Stay on the line. I could hear her shaky breaths, and then I heard it too. Faint, almost imperceptible at first. A soft whimpering, layered, distant, like dozens of children crying at once. Not a laugh. Not the playful shouts I remembered. Crying. Tiny, hopeless sobs carried on the wind, echoing, bouncing off invisible walls, tugging at something deep inside me. Do you hear that? I asked, my voice lower than I meant. Yes, she whispered. Relief, fear, both tangled together. I hear it. It's them. I tried to tell myself it was just the wind, a nearby drain, an echo from a distant building. But the sound grew louder, sharper, and more layered, twisting in impossible ways. It wasn't coming from one direction. It was everywhere. Around me, above me, below me. I could feel the vibrations through the floor, through the phone, through my chest. The officers arrived within minutes, their cars crunching across the gravel. I stayed on the line, trying to guide them, trying to listen for any sign of life. They're in the park, I said. Somewhere you'll hear them. They called back, their voices cautious. Dispatch, it's empty. No one here. Park's deserted. Swings aren't moving. Slide still. Nothing. I swallowed hard. My throat went dry. You're sure? Yes, completely, they said. But even as they spoke, the crying grew louder in my ear. Not through the officers' radios. Not through any device. Just through me. Through the air, the night, the phone line. I tried to make sense of it. How could the playground be empty? The officers were experienced. They didn't flinch at ordinary things. They wouldn't lie about what they saw. And yet, the sound, it didn't stop. It rose and fell, distant, close, impossible. Sometimes a single child sobbed, sharp, terrified. Sometimes dozens, layered together like some chorus of lost voices. I asked the officers to check every corner. They radioed back systematically. Slide clear, swings clear, sandbox clear, bench area, nothing. And still, the crying pressed in closer, impossible. I gripped the phone like it was a lifeline, knuckles white, heart hammering. It's everywhere, I whispered. It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be possible. It's in the air. I could feel in the line, a vibration, a subtle pressure that made my teeth ache. My mind tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was children playing nearby, hidden in the shadows of the houses. Maybe it was some recording, some prank gone too far. But it didn't feel like that. It was wrong in ways my body recognized before my mind could. It was hungry, patient, waiting. The officers' voices came again, tense now. Dispatch, it's still empty. We don't see anything. The park is clean, silent. We don't understand. And then I heard it clear, unmistakable. A single word, a whisper, carried through the static in the night. So small I almost didn't catch it. Help. My stomach twisted. I felt cold. Fingers trembling on the receiver. Did you hear that? I asked, voice shaky. Negative, they said. We hear nothing. Just the wind. There's no one here. I tried to explain. Tried to tell them how the crying moved. How it shifted from one corner of the park to another as though it was alive. Following them, staying just out of reach. It's not outside. It's everywhere. It's here. The line went quiet. My own breathing sounded loud. I could hear the subtle hum of equipment in my ears. And then it began again. The crying, layered, shifting, tearing itself into my thoughts. I could feel it pressing against my temples, tugging, pulling, threading into my memory. I remembered my own childhood. The first time I had been left alone at night. The fear of the dark pressing against me. I remembered running through playgrounds as a kid, friends' laughter echoing in the late afternoon sun. And now it was a mirror, warped, broken, innocence twisted into something dark. something that waited for midnight to breathe. I told the officers to hold their positions. Do not leave the park, I said. Do not walk away. Just stay there. Minutes passed. Seconds stretched into eternity. And still I could hear it. The crying. Not distant now, not impossible. Close. Close enough that I could feel the texture of the sound against my skin, like fingertips brushing my arms, tickling my spine. Then one of them called back, voice trembling. Dispatch. I hear it now. It's here. Not outside. It's in the air. Inside our heads. I froze. My own pulse shot up. What do you mean? Inside your heads. Everywhere, he whispered. It moves. It changes shape. It's calling us. I could hear them breathing over the line. Deep, rag, panicked. And the crying shifted again, higher pitched, sharper, layered with whispers I couldn't place. Words almost forming, but never quite. Please don't leave. I realized then that the playground had never been empty. Not really. I could feel it, the pulse of it, the presence. A place suspended between memory and nightmare. A place that only revealed itself in fragments, in echoes, in sound that made no sense, but were utterly real. The officers reported moving toward the swing set. Dispatch, it's gone. The swing's empty. Nothing. The sandbox clear. And yet, the crying grew louder, closer. I could feel it in my chest now, vibrating through me, threading into my nerves. It was a presence, patient, waiting, and I realized the truth. They wouldn't see it. Not the officers, not anyone. It wasn't about being seen. It was about being heard, being felt, being remembered. I clutched the phone, desperate. You have to hear it. You have to feel it. It's here. Don't leave. Don't. Static, then silence. The line clicked once, sharply, and I was alone. The crying stopped. The park went still. The officers, the call, the presence, all gone. I sat there, trembling, hands pressed against my face. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run. But the memory, the sound, stayed with me. It pressed into the back of my skull, just at the edge of hearing. I knew it would come again. Another call, another night, another playground, another echo. I remember that first whisper. The single word carried across the line. Help. And I realized it wasn't a plea for the officers, not for me. It was for the next listener, the next person to answer the call, the next person to step into the night and hear it. I stayed on the line a little longer, even though there was nothing there, just to hear it, just to remember, just to know that some part of the night still belonged to me, still belonged to those echoes, waiting, patient, impossible, relentless. And then I left, but the crying followed me, in the corners of my mind, in the wind brushing across my windows, in every playground I passed in the daylight, waiting, patient, whispering for the next one. The second call came just after the first had ended, barely enough time for my heart to settle, barely enough time to convince myself it was over. I thought maybe someone was playing tricks. Maybe the night was just alive with echoes and wind. But no, this one was different. It wasn't crying this time. It was singing. The voice on the line was tight, whispering almost, terrified even to speak. They're singing, she said. Children, in the park. But it's wrong. The rhymes there, I don't know. They sound wrong. I felt my stomach drop, a familiar churn that I had tried to ignore the first time. Wrong how? I asked, trying to keep my own voice steady. They rhyme, yes, but the words, they don't make sense. They're dark, ominous. I don't know why, but I don't want to hear it anymore. I swallowed hard. I had never been in the park at night. Not really. Not like this. The last time I'd seen it. The grass was bright. The swing swaying in the sun. Children running and laughing. But midnight changed everything. Midnight made it wrong. I'm sending officers again. I said, just stay calm. Can you tell me where exactly you hear them? The woman hesitated. Near the swings, the slide, the sandbox. Everywhere. But it's moving. The song moves with you. Wherever you step, it follows. I could almost feel it through the phone. I had no right to feel it. No right to believe it. But there it was, that same cold crawl I had felt before, the pressure along my spine, the weight on my chest. It pressed down like invisible hands. The officers called back moments later. Dispatch with the park. Nothing unusual so far. Area's quiet. Swings aren't moving. Slides empty. And then I heard it, through the phone, faint at first, distorted, sliding over the edges of static. A rhyme broken, twisted, sung in childish voices that shouldn't exist this late at night. Ring around, shadows fall, we creep, we crawl, we call. I froze, my chest tightened. The words shouldn't exist, shouldn't make sense, but they did. And yet wrong, warped, dark, like a reflection of innocence gone sour. I asked the officers if they heard it. Dispatch, nothing. Park's empty, sands untouched, benches are still. I gritted my teeth, my own pulse raced in my ears. It's not outside, I whispered. It's moving through the air. You'll feel it, you'll hear it. Another stanza followed, sung soft but layered, almost multiple voices in the same line. Hide and seek in the blackest night. Don't look back, stay out of sight. Tick-tock, the shadows play. We are coming, we are on our way. My stomach twisted. The officers were calm over the radio, professional, but I could feel the tension rising in the air, thick, almost choking. They called back, their voices cautious now. Dispatch, nothing. Still empty. Sand smooth. Slide untouched. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the wind carried fragments of old songs. Maybe someone had recorded something, left a speaker somewhere. But the way it shifted, like it followed me, moved to the edges of the park, hovered near the swings and the sandbox, made my mind reel. It wasn't normal. It wasn't human. The woman on the line, she had stayed, quiet, listening. I could hear her breathing, shallow, tense. It's louder now, she whispered. It's coming closer. Not me. Me? I don't know, but it's not just a park anymore. It's following me. I tried to steady my voice. You're okay. Just stay put. Officers are there. They'll check everything. The song shifted again, faster, warped. The voices overlapping, echoing, bouncing from corner to corner. I could hear in the line, each word twisting inside my head, threading into my memory, tapping on some deep, buried place. Up the hill, through the trees, follow shadows, bend your knees. Whisper low, we're always near. Listen close, there's nothing to fear. I pressed my forehead against my hand, closing my eyes. My pulse hammered in my ears. I could feel it now. Not just the song, not just the air, but the shape of it. Something waiting, patient, layered, not bound by walls or doors. It didn't need space. It existed in tension, in fear, in attention. The officers called again. Dispatch, still nothing. Everything's clear. Area's quiet. We don't see anything. I swallowed dry, bitter, and tried to explain the impossible. It doesn't need to be seen. That's not the point. It's here, everywhere, pressing against you, in your mind, in your ears. You won't see it. You'll hear it, feel it, understand it. The line went quiet for a moment. Then the song changed tone. Darker, heavier, slower, almost deliberate. Each word a weight pressing into my chest. Step lightly, don't make a sound. Shadows hide, but they're all around. Eyes that watch, eyes that creep. In your mind we softly seep. I felt cold. My hands gripped the phone, nails digging in. My mind searched for logic, for reason, for any explanation. Nothing fit. Nothing made sense. The park was empty. Officers' voices confirmed it. Yet I could feel the song on the line, in my chest, threading into the room, following me, hovering over my shoulders. The woman whispered again. It's right here, near me. I can feel it, watching, listening, waiting. I tried to comfort her, though my own fear was roiling through me. It's okay. You're safe. You're on the line with me. It can't get to you while we're... The line hissed, static, and then the song changed again. Multiple voices now, almost a choir of children singing, layered, overlapping, warping, laughter broken, lullabies torn, whispers wait where light is worn. Follow the rhyme, count to 3, we are coming, we always see. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisted. The officers called back again. Dispatch, we hear something, low, faint, far, distant maybe from the trees, the empty grass, but no children. I could feel it shifting now. Not just the song, not just the air, not just the line. It was inside me, threading in, pushing, pulling, aligning with every beat of my pulse. It wasn't physical, but it was present, persistent, impossible to ignore. I told the officers to stay near the swings. Don't move. Don't approach the sandbox. Don't follow the sound. Just stay there. Observe. The whispers became stanzas now, fragmented, overlapping, disjointed, but every line carried a weight I couldn't deny. Round and round, the shadows go. Stop, don't look, we'll steal the show. Little hands, little feet, follow us, can't be beat. I could feel it pressing closer. The line seemed to vibrate with tension, carrying more than sound. Memories, shadows, something dark pressing at the edges of perception. I pressed my hand to my temple, closed my eyes, trying to anchor myself. The woman whispered, voice shaking. It's moving. Closer. Not me. Me? Not. I don't know. I swallowed. Just stay on the line. Listen. Breathe. You're okay. You're okay. And then it ended. Just like that. Silence. The song stopped. The whispers faded. The park was empty. The officers confirmed. No swings moved. Sandbox untouched. Slide still. Everything normal. Too normal. I stayed on the line, heart racing, trying to convince myself it was over, trying to convince myself it had never been real. But I knew it was only waiting, patient. The echoes of the song, the warped rhymes, the unnatural play. They were not bound by time, by space, by reason. They waited for the next night, the next listener, the next call. And somewhere, far away in the darkness of the park, they sang again. I should have stopped answering the calls. I should have hung up and walked away. But that night, like every night since the first report, the park kept calling. The second call had barely ended when another came in. The woman's voice trembled, barely above a whisper, almost pleading. The swings, they're moving, but there's no one there. I don't understand. Please, you have to send someone. I tried to steady myself, tried to tell her that help was on the way. I tried to convince myself that it was nothing, a gust of wind, someone playing a trick of the mind. But my chest tightened, my stomach churned. I knew better. They're moving on their own? I asked, voice low, steady, though my own pulse thrummed in my ears. Yes, she said, back and forth, but no one's there. It's just like they're alive. I swallowed hard, pressing the phone tighter to my ear. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line. Don't leave the house. Don't do anything until they get there. The officers arrive quickly, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, beams stretching across the swings, the slide, the sandbox. I stayed on the line, heart hammering, listening to every sound, every footstep, every radio crackle. Dispatch, one of them said. We're here. Nothing yet. Area's quiet. Swings, still. Slides, empty. And then I heard it. A subtle creak. Soft at first. Almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. A swing moving. Back and forth. No wind. No one on it. Just a swing. Gliding through the night air. Like someone had left a hand on it and then vanished. I felt my stomach twist. Do you see that? I asked, voice shaking. Yes, the officer admitted. Tension creeping into his voice. It's moving. There's no one there. Dispatch. We don't know how it's moving. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe through it, trying to make sense of what couldn't be explained. The swing swayed steadily, rhythmical, deliberate, not chaotic, not random, controlled, intentional. Then I realized the shadows were moving too. At the edge of the flashlight beams, subtle shifts, shapes stretching and contracting, bending in ways that shouldn't be possible. Trees seemed to lean, branches twisting slightly as if watching, reaching, and the swings, still moving, were almost beckoning. "Dispatch! What the hell is this?" the officer asked. His voice cracked. "The shadows are moving at the edges. We see them, but not clearly. Just shapes, flickers." I swallowed dry, bitter, and tried to steady my own voice. "You're safe. Stay calm. Don't approach the swings. Just observe. Tell me everything." The swings move with eerie precision, back and forth, slow, almost like breathing, and at times, I could swear the chains were stretching, elongating just a fraction longer than they should, bending in ways that made my stomach knot. The shadows shifted in perfect time with the swings, creeping closer to the edges of the flashlight beams, but never fully revealing themselves. I thought about the first calls, the crying, the unnatural songs, the warped rhymes. This was the next step, the next level of something patient, something that observed, something that knew exactly how to unsettle. It wasn't chaos. It was deliberate. It was sentient. The woman on the line whispered again, almost in awe, almost in terror. "It's here. The swings, the shadows, they're alive. Watching." I pressed my fingers to my forehead. I know it's there. Don't panic. Just observe. Focus on your surroundings. Count steps. Check everything carefully. Just don't let it know you're afraid. The swings shifted again, and for a moment, I thought I saw the outline of a small figure crouched behind the slide. A flash of movement that vanished as soon as I blinked. I tried to tell the officers, but my voice caught in my throat. "Dispatch." We see it." One of them finally admitted. "A figure crouched behind the slide, but it disappears every time we blink. Every time." I swallowed hard. My hands shook. I could feel the air pressing against me, the line alive with tension, with something that wanted to be felt. I knew then that this wasn't a prank, wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was something patient, something intelligent, something that knew exactly how to toy with perception. The swings moved faster now, almost skipping back and forth, the chain singing softly in the night air. The shadows stretched and warped, edges bending in impossible ways, flickering like smoke in the beams of light. I could feel in the line, vibrating through my chest, threading into my nerves. "Don't approach," I repeated, voice tight. "Just observe. Tell me everything." The officers hesitated. "Dispatch. The swings are different, not just moving. They're beckoning, almost trying to lure us closer. And the shadows, moving just outside the flashlight beams, they seem to shift when we move." I felt my stomach knot. That's exactly it. That's what it wants. It wants attention. It wants to be noticed, but not confronted. Just watched. Another movement caught my eye, or maybe it was in my mind. A swing twisted, as if a small hand had grasped it and then vanished. A shadow flickered across the grass, stretching, bending, elongating into something humanoid for a heartbeat before collapsing back into darkness. I tried to ground myself, tried to remind myself that they were trained, that officers could handle unusual situations. But even their voices over the radio betrayed tension, a creeping dread I could feel through the line. "Dispatch." We don't know how to describe it. The swings, the shadows, the air, it feels heavy, like it's pressing down on us. I can't explain it. I swallowed, my own chest tight. I know it's impossible, but it's real. Focus on observation. Count everything. Don't step closer. Don't interact. The swings moved in perfect rhythm, and I could feel in my chest, in my stomach, in the back of my neck, the presence of something that wasn't just shadows, wasn't just air, wasn't just fear. Something patient, intelligent, deliberate. It had waited for the darkness, waited for the night, and was fully aware of every breath, every blink, every heartbeat. A small noise reached my ears, almost like giggling, high-pitched, fragile, but wrong, distorted, layered, overlapping. Not one child, dozens. I felt it press against my skull. A whisper, a taunt, a tease. The officers' voices were tight now. "Dispatch." I don't know how to explain this. The swings, they're moving toward us. Not physically. Not like normal motion. But they're closer. The shadows stretching. Watching. Waiting. I try to anchor myself. It's perception. It's the pattern. Observe. Count. Breathe. Do not engage. Do not panic. Another movement. A swing twisted sharply, as if a child had jumped onto it and disappeared mid-motion. The shadows bent, curling along the edges of the light, almost forming shapes, almost forming eyes, almost forming hands that hovered at the edge of perception. I felt the air press closer. Something heavy, patient, deliberate, waiting for attention, for acknowledgement, for the slightest mistake. I could feel the officer's fear through the line, like a physical presence in my chest. And I realized with that sinking certainty that this thing, whatever was, fed on observation, on focus, on acknowledgement. The woman whispered, voice trembling, It's here. It's not just the swings. It's the air, the shadows, it's watching, always watching. I press my fingers to my temple. I know, that's exactly what it is. Stay calm. Don't move closer. Don't blink too long. Just observe. Count. Anchor yourself. The swings move again back and forth, in perfect rhythm. The shadows shifted, bending along the edges of the flashlights, stretching, elongating, folding in on themselves. I could feel it in the line, vibrating through my chest, threading into my mind, threading into the officers' minds, threading into the night itself. And then, for a moment, silence. The swing stopped. The shadows froze. The air held its breath. My chest ached. My pulse thundered. And in that silence, I knew something had changed. Something had been seen, acknowledged, accepted, and I knew it wasn't over. Not tonight. Not ever. The swings would move again. The shadows would shift again. And the playground, the park, the darkness itself, would continue its patient, deliberate watch, waiting for the next set of eyes to fall upon it. And I would answer the next call. The calls had started small, barely noticeable at first. A whisper here, a garbled word there. Nothing that anyone would have taken seriously if it weren't for the feeling it carried. The weight of something patient, deliberate, unseen. By the time I realized what was happening, I was already tangled in it, already part of it, already listening to the messages in the dark. It began with static, a low hum that carried across the line, threading to the edges of my hearing, almost like it knew where to press to get my attention. Then came the garbled voices, overlapping, distorted, impossible to understand at first. I leaned closer to the headset, trying to pick out words, trying to make sense of the chaos. And then I heard it, a phrase, broken, scattered, repeated across calls from different neighborhoods, different houses, different officers on patrol. We watching always. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I pressed my fingers against the desk, trying to steady myself. The calls came in waves, each one carrying pieces of the same message, fragmented, garbled, like a puzzle that refused to form a coherent picture. But the meaning was clear. Something was watching, and had been watching for a long time. The first officer on the line reported nothing out of the ordinary. Street empty, houses quiet, shadows normal. Yet the static persisted, carrying whispers, tiny inflections that weren't human, that weren't natural. I found myself leaning closer, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. The messages demanded attention. Another call came, this one from a resident who had stumbled upon the sound while checking a noise outside. Her voice shook. I hear them. I hear something, saying things I don't understand, but it's near me, watching the town. I swallowed hard, dry and bitter. You're safe. Stay inside. Don't look out. Just stay on the line. She whispered something else, fragmented, dark edges movingly. The line went silent, static pulsing softly before the next call arrived. Another officer, this one patrolling the outskirts of town, reported similar sounds, garbled phrases, whispers just beyond comprehension. Dispatch, I can't words, distorted something watching us. I pressed my hand to my temple. My pulse hammered, my chest tight. I had to decode it, had to understand. I began to piece together the fragments, scribbling notes, replaying recordings. Slowly, agonizingly, a pattern emerged. The words weren't random. They were messages. Messages meant to be understood if you listened carefully, if you paid attention. We are watching, always, waiting. Nothing escapes our eyes. We move in the dark. We wait for attention. We know. I shivered. My fingers trembled on the keyboard, typing out every garbled fragment, trying to make sense of it. The more I listened, the more I realized it wasn't limited to one place, not one neighborhood, not one street. It was everywhere, threading through the town, invisible, patient, deliberate. A call came from the woman who had reported the swings, the children's songs. Her voice was thin, almost breaking. I can hear it, all around, watching. We not alone, shadows moving. I felt the air in the room tighten, pressing against my skin. I tried to ground myself, tried to remind myself it was just sound waves, just interference, just human error. But the words weren't human. The phrasing, the intonation, the deliberate repetitions, they weren't natural. They were meant to be heard. And now I was hearing them. Another fragment. We are always near, watching, waiting. Attention brings us closer. I gritted my teeth. My mind raced, trying to map the locations, trying to find a pattern, trying to find logic in the chaos. But logic didn't exist here. Nothing did. It wasn't a person, not a group, not a machine. It was something else, something patient, something that understood observation as fuel, that understood fear as sustenance. The messages continued to arrive, more distorted, more desperate, layered with static and whispers. Don't blink, don't look, we see all. I pressed my hand to my chest. I could feel it, not just the words, but the presence behind them, something that moved through the wires, through the air, threading into perception, threading into my thoughts. Patient, observant, waiting. The officers called back, tension thick in their voices. Dispatch. I don't know how to explain this. The calls, they're everywhere. Same message, same words, different lines. We can feel it, watching. I swallowed hard. Yes, that's exactly it. That's what it wants. Observation, attention, fear, stay calm. Count, record, don't engage, don't look for it. Another resident called, voice trembling. I see shadows moving on my street along the trees, following the light. It's watching the town. I leaned back, chest tight, trying to breathe. The pieces were falling together, forming a picture that I didn't want to see. Something was watching everywhere. The town, the streets, the houses, the parks. Every quiet corner, every shadowed edge, every darkened alley. It waited, patient, deliberate, intelligent. Another fragment reached me, barely audible through the static. Attention feeds us fear. We move in darkness, we never sleep. I felt my hands tremble, my pulse race. The messages weren't just warnings, they were statements, revelations. They didn't need to shout, they didn't need to scream. They just existed, threading through the lines, through the night, threading into the people who listened. The woman on the line whispered again. It's in the dark, watching, waiting, we can't hide. I pressed my forehead to the desk. No, I whispered. No, you're not alone. We're listening. I'm listening. That's why it's here. Another officer called back, voice tight, professional facade cracking. Dispatch, it's everywhere. On every line. Moving, watching. I can feel in the air. The static, the whispers, the messages. I typed furiously. Try to record every fragment, every distorted syllable. It didn't matter that it was impossible to fully understand. The pieces themselves were proof that something patient, intelligent, deliberate, and utterly inhuman was threading through our lives, threading to the town, threading into the night. Another fragment came through, layered over 3 separate calls. We are here, always waiting. We see you all. I shivered. My fingers gripped the headset, knuckles white. I could feel the presence now, not just through sound, but in the air and the shadows, and the faint hum of electricity around the equipment. Patient, observant, intelligent, waiting. The woman's voice broke. I don't want to hear it anymore. I can't. It's too much. I swallowed dry, bitter. It's okay. Just keep calm. Keep listening. Don't panic. Just observe. The fragments continue to pile up. Words repeated, layered, warped. Watching, never sleeping. We always near attention. Feeds us darkness, waiting. I press my hand to my chest, trying to slow my racing heart. The messages weren't just communication. They were intent, observation, purpose, proof that we were not alone, that someone or something was threading itself into the night, into the town, into perception itself. Another resident called, terrified. I saw something moving through the trees, following the streetlights. It's watching the town, all of us. I swallowed hard. Yes, that's it. That's exactly it. That's what it does. Don't engage. Don't move. Observe. Count. Record. And then, through the static, the final fragment, clear, deliberate, chilling. We are watching, always patient, inevitable. The dark knows. I froze. My chest tightened. My hands shook. My pulse thundered. The town, the streets, the night, the shadows, the static, the calls. They were all part of it, all observed, all feeding something patient, deliberate, intelligent, and entirely inhuman. I realized then that nothing would ever be the same. The messages were not a warning. They were a statement, a proof, an assertion of presence, of control, of awareness. Something had been watching the town all along, and now, through the calls, through the static, it had let us know, and I had listened. I had answered, and now it knew I was listening. The night had been long, too long. Every call I had answered, every whisper I had tried to decode, every swing, every shadow, every garbled message, it all led to this. I could feel in the air, thick and heavy, pressing down to the wires, through the streets, through the town itself. It was waiting, patient, and it had one final message. The call came in late, later than any I had answered before. The phone vibrated sharply in my hand, almost as if it had its own urgency, and I hesitated before pressing the button. I shouldn't have picked it up. I knew I shouldn't, but something deep inside told me I had to. Dispatch. The voice was small, almost inaudible, trembling, a childlike tone, but layered with terror. They're there at the edge, the forest, standing, watching. I swallowed hard. My fingers tightened around the receiver. Who's there? Stay calm. Can you see them clearly? They're children, I think, but not like before. They're quiet, just standing, just watching. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. My pulse hammered in my ears. I tried to ground myself, to remind myself that this could be explained, but I already knew it couldn't. I had been hearing the whispers, the songs, the garbled messages. I had been following the swings, the shadows, the lines threading through the night. I knew better. Where exactly are they? I asked, voice low, steady, trying to keep control. The edge of the forest near the path, the old trail. They're lined up silent like they're waiting. I tried to visualize it. The forest at night, dark, dense, shadows folding in on themselves. And there at the edge, children standing unnaturally still, quiet, watching, not moving, not speaking, just waiting. My chest tightened. They don't look normal, the caller whispered. Their faces pale, eyes dark. They're not blinking. I swallowed hard, dry, bitter. You're safe. Stay calm. Don't approach them. Just stay where you are. Can you see if anyone else is around? No one, just them, all of them, watching. I pressed my hand to my forehead. The weight of the night pressed in, heavier than it had before. Everything I had heard, everything I had pieced together from calls and whispers led to this moment. The edge of the forest, the silent children, waiting, observing, patient. A subtle sound reached the line, a soft shuffle, almost imperceptible. I froze. My pulse leapt, What was that? I asked, voice tight. They moved just a little, not a step, just shifted. I swallowed again. Do not move. Stay calm. Focus on your breathing. Don't look directly at them. Don't react. The line was filled with static, a low hum beneath the voice, threading through my nerves. I could feel it pressing in, like the night itself was bending toward me, waiting for me to acknowledge it. They're closer, the caller whispered. I can see them better now. Their faces hollow, their eyes empty, but I can feel them. I press my knuckles to the desk. Yes, that's it. That's what it wants. Observation, attention, fear. Don't panic. Just stay on the line. Don't move. Another sound reached me then, a soft, unnatural laughter, broken and distorted, layered over static. It wasn't a child's laugh, not really. It was stretched, warped, impossibly slow. The kind of sound that lingers, threading into memory, pressing against the edges of reason. They're singing, but not words I know, just tones, rhythms, and something else. I can't. I swallowed hard, try to slow my pulse. Focus, stay calm, listen carefully. Don't follow the sounds, just observe. The caller's voice trembled. They're moving closer, not stepping, just gliding. I can feel it. They're everywhere. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. The presence I've been following, the swings, the shadows, the garbled messages. It all converged here at the edge of the forest with these silent children, patient, waiting, observing. I pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to anchor myself. They know I can see them, the caller whispered. I can feel it, their eyes in my head, not just their eyes, everything watching. I swallowed, dry and bitter. Yes, that's exactly it. That's what it does. Observation, attention, awareness. It feeds on it. Don't look too long. Don't blink too much. Focus on your breathing. Anchor yourself. A sudden noise erupted on the line. A high-pitched scream, piercing, sharp, almost too short to be real. And then it changed. It didn't end. Not really. It faded unnaturally, stretching, distorting, threading to the static, lingering in a way that made my teeth ache. I pressed my hands over my ears, trying to ground myself. My pulse thundered. My chest felt tight, heavy. The scream was everywhere, nowhere inside me, inside the line, inside the night. It twisted, bent, stretched, impossibly long, impossibly slow. They screamed, the caller whispered, voice breaking. I can't, it's fading, but not gone, still here. I could feel it pressing in, the weight of it, the sound threading into my skull, threading into my nerves. The children at the edge of the forest itself, the night, the presence, patient, watching, waiting. I knew then that this wasn't a moment. This was a process, a ritual, a message, a statement of awareness. I pressed my forehead to the desk, heart hammering. Yes, I hear it. I understand. You're safe. Stay on the line. Don't move. Breathe. Anchor yourself. Don't panic. The static hum beneath the fading scream, subtle but persistent. And then, faintly, I could hear whispers, almost indistinguishable, layered, overlapping. Watching, always waiting. Nothing escapes. We know, we see. I swallowed, trembling. My hands shook on the desk. My mind raced, trying to make sense, trying to parse the fragments, the layers, the weight pressing in from the line, the night, the forest, the silent children. They're closer, the caller whispered. I can feel, all of us watching me, waiting. I pressed the receiver tighter to my ear. The line hummed, whispered, threaded into my nerves. I felt the presence not just in call, but around me, pressing through the room, pressing against my chest, threading through my thoughts. Patient, observant, deliberate. Stay calm. Focus on breathing. Stay anchored. Don't blink too long. Don't move. Observation, that's all it wants. I whispered, more to myself and the caller. The scream faded further, stretching, bending, threading into silence. And in the silence, I could hear the faint shuffle of feet, too soft, too deliberate, on the edge of perception. The children, still silent, watching, gliding just beyond sight, their faces pale, their eyes empty, their presence unavoidable. I pressed my fingers to my temples. My pulse hammered, my chest tightened. Every story, every call, every whisper had led to this. The edge of the forest, the silent children, the patient, watching presence threading through the town, through the night, through every call I had ever answered. And then, just before the line went dead, I heard it. A whisper, soft, deliberate, patient. Next time we see you. I froze. My heart thundered. The line clicked. Silence. Absolute silence. I sat there, shaking, hands pressed to my face, chest tight, mind reeling. The night pressed in, heavier than ever. I knew then that it wasn't over. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever. The children, the forest, the shadows, the whispers, they were always watching, always waiting, always patient. I realized I had become part of it, a witness, an observer, and through that observation, through my attention, it knew I existed. I stayed on the line for a long time, listening to the silence, waiting for the next sound, the next call, the next message. But nothing came, only the weight of awareness, patient and deliberate, pressing against the edges of perception. And I knew I would answer again, because I couldn't not, because someone had to listen, because it would never stop. It was just past midnight when the call came in, the kind of hour where the world feels hollow, like the air itself is holding its breath. I was sipping lukewarm coffee, staring at the dim glow of the monitors, when the line clicked and a voice came through, nervous, tense, carrying the kind of fear that doesn't make sense but is impossible to ignore. Dispatch? This is Nurse Carter. 3. West, something's wrong. I keep hearing whispers. In the empty wing. The doors are locked. I don't understand. I froze, my pen halfway to a blank log sheet. Whispers? I asked, trying to sound calm, professional. Can you describe them? Words? Voices? Patience? The line was thick with hesitation. No, it's not patience. Not staff. Not anyone. Just whispers. Faint, almost like a conversation, but wrong. Hollow. I keep checking the rooms, and it's empty. Everything's empty. I swallowed hard, feeling a familiar twist of unease settle in my stomach. Hospitals at night were already strange, sterile corridors stretching into shadows, machines beeping quietly like tiny heartbeats. But whispers, hollow, deliberate, impossible, that was different. Okay, I said, keeping my voice steady. Are you alone in the wing? Yes, she whispered. All doors locked. Hallways clear. But it's there. I can hear behind me, around me, everywhere. I scribbled a note, though it felt almost useless. The voice on the line trembled, and I could hear the quiet hum of fluorescent lights, the faint rattle of distant equipment. But beneath it all, a thin thread of sound that didn't belong. Can you tell me what it's saying? I asked, leaning closer to the headset, trying to pick out something coherent, some anchor. No, she said. Not words, not exactly. Like words stitched together wrong. Sometimes I think I hear my name, sometimes just phrases, not in order, not logical, but it feels like someone or something is trying to communicate. I felt a chill, slow and deliberate, crawling up my spine. I should have told her to step away, to leave the wing, to call someone in person, but something in her voice, fear mixed with disbelief, made me stay. I stayed on the line. Okay, I said, keeping my voice low, even though my own pulse had started to hammer. Stay where you are. Don't go deeper into the wing. Can you move to a more open area? A room with a clear view of the hallway? Yes, she whispered. I can, but it follows me. I hear it when I move. I hear it when I stop. It's patient, waiting. I pressed my forehead to my palm. I'd heard about haunted ward before, ghost stories whisper among night staff. The usual stuff meant to pass the hours. But this was different. This was precise. Focus, not a story. Something deliberate. Do you feel it near you physically? I asked, or just hear it? Her voice shook. Both. Almost like it presses against my chest, my back. Then it moves around behind doors, through the walls. I don't know how it's possible, but I can feel it. I try to rationalize it, even as the hair on my neck bristled. Exhaustion, stress, hospital air thick with antiseptic. Maybe it was my own mind, echoing her fear, but something about the clarity in her panic. The way she described the shifts in air, the almost physical presence. I knew better. Stay calm, I said. Focus on the light. The nearest exit. The nearest nurse station. Keep your eyes on something stable. Don't listen to it. Just focus on what's real. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, sharp, uneven. I see a shadow at the end of the hall. Not a person. Not anything human. Just darkness stretching, folding, watching. I press my hand to the desk, feeling the tension thrum through my own chest. Do not approach it. Do not engage. Can you back away? Keep the door between you and it. Yes, yes, she whispered, voice shaking. But it moves. I swear it's closer than before. I can feel it watching, feeling. The static on the line thickened, almost like it was a layer of sound added on top of the hospital's hum. Faint murmurs threaded through it, impossible to distinguish, almost too faint to hear. But I could feel them in my ears and my chest, threading into my thoughts. Patient, deliberate, waiting. Listen to me, I said. Stay calm. Keep your breathing steady. Don't acknowledge it. Keep focus on the room, the light, your position. Keep yourself grounded. She nodded, though I couldn't see her, and whispered, It's circling. Around me. In the hall. I hear voices, faint. Almost singing. Not songs. Not real, just tones, rhythms layered. Overlapping. I lean closer, heartbeat hammering. My own pulse felt loud, intrusive, like it was echoing in the monitors around me. Do not follow the sounds. Do not move toward them. Anchor yourself. Focus on your own breathing. Count. Something repetitive. Anything stable. The whispers intensified. A rhythm. Almost musical. Impossible in its origin. Threading to the static. Pressing against the edge of perception. I felt in my chest, my skull, my nerves. The presence she described wasn't just auditory. It was awareness. Conscious. Focused. Observing. I think it knows I'm listening, she whispered. Feels like it's aware of me. Of us. Everything. The building, the floor, the hall. I don't know what it wants. I swallowed hard. It wants attention. Focus. Observation. Don't give it more than you have to. Stay calm. Focus on what you can control. Your breathing, your position, the light, the room. Nothing else matters. A sudden sound, a high-pitched flicker, almost like a chair scraping the floor. But wrong. Too precise. Too impossible. My stomach twisted. Did you hear that? Yes, she whispered, voice trembling. But no one's here. Nothing's here. Just movement. Watching. Following. Patient. I pressed my fingers to my temple. I knew then that this wasn't a typical disturbance, a malfunction, or a prank. This was something deliberate. Something that threaded through walls, through hallways, through the night. Something that understood fear and observation and awareness. The static thickened again, carrying fragmented murmurs, broken phrases almost understandable if you strained. My chest tightened. I felt the presence too, not just through her voice, but in the room, through the monitors, through the air around me. Patient, observant, deliberate. I can see faint shapes, corners of the hall, moving, shadows, folding, stretching, she whispered. Do not look directly at them, I said, voice tight. Do not blink too long. Anchor yourself. Focus on breathing. Focus on what you know. You're safe. Just observation. Observation is all it wants. A low hum threaded through the line. Beneath her voice, beneath the hospital's machinery, threading into my nerves. Patient, waiting, observant. A presence that knew we were aware of it. A presence that fed on that awareness. I I can't, it's too much, she whispered. I think it knows I'm afraid. It wants me to. The line cracked, static thickening. And then, for a moment, silence. Absolute, oppressive silence. And in that silence, I heard a faint whisper layered beneath the hum. Impossible and deliberate. Watching, always waiting. Her voice caught, breaking. I can't, it's here. The line went dead. Click. I sat there, chest tight, pulse racing, staring at the silent monitors. The hum of the hospital, the empty hallways, the darkness pressing against the building. It didn't feel empty anymore. It didn't feel safe. It felt patient, deliberate, observant. I knew then that it had noticed me too. The presence in the empty wing, the whispers, the shapes, the patient awareness threading to the hospital. It knew I had listened. It knew I had acknowledged it. And in that moment, I realized the line was never really dead. Not really. It was just waiting for the next call, the next voice, the next witness to notice. And I knew deep down that I would answer again, because someone had to listen, because it never stops, because awareness is what it wants. The night had barely begun, but the first call arrived like a cold gust, sudden and insistent. Nurse Harper's voice trembled through the line, thin and strained. Dispatch? Something's wrong on the 4th floor. Doors they keep closing, by themselves. And footsteps. I hear them, but there's no one here. I lean closer to the headset, pulse tightening. Doors closing by themselves? I repeated, trying to ground both her and myself. Are you alone? Yes, she whispered, almost inaudibly. All staff called down to the lower wings. But the doors are moving, opening, then slamming shut. And the footsteps, I hear them just outside each door, pacing, circling, watching. I press my hand against my temple, trying to slow my racing thoughts. Hospitals at night were already strange, quiet and hollow, full of shadows and the soft hum of machines. But what she described was deliberate, unnatural. Something patient, calculating, aware. Stay where you are, I said, keeping my voice steady. Do not approach the doors. Keep to the center of the hall. Focus on what's real. Your breathing, the floor beneath your feet, the lights. Don't chase the sounds. I can't stop noticing, she whispered. I hear it moving, just beyond the door frames, almost whispering or breathing. I don't know which. And the monitors, they flicker. Machines beep at random. Not malfunctions. It's something else. I scribbled a note, though it felt useless. I've been hearing reports like this for weeks. Strange noises, impossible shadows, garbled whispers. But this felt different. Focused, patient, direct. It wasn't an accident, not a coincidence. Are you seeing anything? I asked, voice low. Shadows? Shapes? Yes, she admitted. But not like before. Not physical. Just darkness stretching in the corners, moving along the walls, folding on itself, almost aware. I can feel it behind the monitors, behind the walls, watching. I swallowed, dry and bitter. Do not engage. Observation only. Stay in the hallway. Don't approach any doors. And don't leave the center. Keep your eyes on something stable. Focus on what you know. Another call came through at the same time. A night orderly, shaking, reporting the same phenomena on the 2nd floor. Doors closing, lights flickering, footsteps circling, soft whispers almost imperceptible to the hum of machinery. The words were fragmented, panicked, overlapping with Harper's call. I felt a cold shiver trace my spine. Multiple reports, same patterns, same phenomena. It wasn't confined to one area. It threaded through the hospital, patient, deliberate, aware of every sound, every movement, every heartbeat. Dispatch! It's moving along the corridors, orderly said, voice breaking. Faint, almost gliding. The doors, they closed behind me. I didn't touch them. And the footsteps, I hear them following, echoing. But when I turn, nothing. I press my fingers to my temples. Stay calm. Stay in well-lit areas. Keep your eyes on the lights, the floor, the equipment. Do not pursue any movement. Observation only. The line was thick with static, the overlapping calls weaving into a tapestry of dread. I could feel it through the wires, through the air, threading into my own pulse. Patient, observant, deliberate, waiting. Harper whispered again, voice almost breaking. I hear it near the supply closet, soft scraping, shifting like something dragging, but nothing's there. And the monitors, they display numbers, words, things I don't recognize. Glitches, maybe, but deliberate, almost communicating. I swallowed hard. Do not touch anything. Keep your hands to yourself. Anchor yourself to one stable point. Desk, wall, light. Focus. Observation only. The footsteps intensified, soft and deliberate, moving in patterns that made no sense. Not chaotic, not random, but precise. Circling, measuring, testing, and the doors closing, opening just enough to draw attention, just enough to make the hallways feel alive. Another whisper threaded through the calls. Harper's voice terrified. It's aware of me, the doors, the shadows, the air itself. I feel it pressing, testing, waiting for me to notice, to react. I press my hand to the desk, pulse hammering. Yes, exactly. Observation. That's all it wants. Focus on your breathing. Count. Anchor yourself. Do not engage. The line hummed with overlapping static and murmurs, faint, indistinct. It wasn't just sounds. It was presence, awareness threading through wires, through the night, through walls. It was patient, deliberate, intelligent. I can see shapes, Harper whispered. At the edges of the hall, near the doors, shadows, folding, stretching, almost human but wrong. Watching, waiting. I felt the room tighten around me. My pulse raced. My chest ached. This was no longer just a hospital problem. This was something deliberate, threading through perception itself. Observing, testing, waiting. Stay calm. I whispered, focus, observation. Nothing else. Count, anchor, breathe. The equipment flickered again. Monitors beeped in impossible rhythms. Numbers jumping, lights dimming and brightening in patterns that felt like intentional signals. The orderly whispered, I see it. Shadows moving in the monitors, folding into corners, stretching down hallways that shouldn't exist, just beyond the edge of the light. I swallowed, knuckles white. Do not approach. Observation only. Keep your attention on one stable point. Anchor yourself. Another sound, faint but deliberate, echoed in the call. A scraping, shifting, sliding along the floor, approaching, retreating, circling. I could feel it in my chest, threading through my nerves. Patient, observant, aware of every thought, every heartbeat. Harper's voice trembled. I can feel it near me, behind the doors, the closets, the air. It's pressing, watching, almost breathing, almost waiting. I gritted my teeth, trying to keep my own fear in check. This wasn't random. It wasn't malfunction. It was deliberate. It understood observation, understood attention, understood fear. The static thickened, layered with whispers, overlapping voices, garbled fragments from multiple calls. Watching, always aware, testing, waiting, I felt my chest tighten. My hands shook. The presence wasn't confined to the hospital. It threaded through the calls, the equipment, the night, through awareness itself. It was intelligent, patient, observant, deliberate. I hear voices, faint, layered, repeating rhythms, tones, not words, just testing, observing. Harper whispered, do not follow the sounds. I said, voice low, tight. Do not move toward them. Anchor yourself. Focus. Observation only. The doors close again, heavy, deliberate. The shadows stretched along the walls, bending at impossible angles, folding in ways that made the hallways feel alive. I felt the presence pressing in, aware of me, aware of the calls, threading through the night. The orderly's voice broke. Dispatch. It's moving through the equipment. Monitors, lights, patterns, repeating, watching, testing. I pressed my forehead to the desk. Yes, that's exactly it. Observation. Attention. That's all it wants. Keep calm. Anchor yourself. Focus. Nothing else. A final whisper threaded through the static, faint, deliberate, patient. We measure, we wait to wear, always testing. I swallowed hard. My pulse thundered. My chest ached. The doors, the footsteps, the shadows, the monitors, the whispers. They weren't just anomalies. They were proof. Proof of something deliberate, patient, intelligent, threading to the hospital, through the night, through awareness itself. And I knew, deep down, that it had noticed me too. That my attention, my observation, my acknowledgement had fed it, made it aware, made it patient, made it deliberate. The lines went silent. The monitors hummed in their normal rhythm. The doors sat closed, still, but the presence lingered, patient and deliberate, threading through awareness, waiting for the next movement, the next heartbeat, the next observation. And I knew that the hospital would never feel empty again. Not really, because someone or something was always watching, and it was patient, and it was deliberate, and it would never stop. It started as an ordinary night, the kind of night where nothing seems out of place until the first crack in reality shows itself. I had been at the dispatch desk for hours, answering routine calls, logging minor incidents, the low hum of monitors filling the silence. And then the call came, not from a phone, not from a nurse, but from the hospital floor itself. Nurse Dalton, please report to the admissions desk. Patient John Mercer has arrived for treatment. I frowned at the monitor. The voice sounded official, but the name wasn't in the system. I checked the log. Nothing. No records of admission. No incoming patient alerts. I picked up the phone. Dalton? I asked, do you have a John Mercer in your wing? The line was quiet for a moment, and then a soft, almost hesitant voice came. I see him, sitting in the waiting area, alone, calm, but he wasn't on any roster. I checked. I swallowed. Alone? Are you sure it's the right wing? Yes, she whispered. I double-checked. No admissions. No paperwork. Nothing. But he's here. I pressed my hand to my forehead, trying to keep my pulse steady. I had dealt with clerical errors, misplaced files, patients arriving early or late. But this was something else. Can you approach him? Ask for his ID? Any paperwork? I said, voice low, steady. We need to verify. I don't want to, Dalton admitted. Something feels wrong. His eyes are hollow, like he's looking through me. And when I tried to ask, he didn't answer, just stared. And the hallway, it shifted. Not normal. The walls stretched. I'm not imagining it. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. The hospital, with its long, sterile corridors and harsh fluorescent lights, should have been a place of routine. But the way Dalton described it, the stretching walls, the hollow stare, it was impossible. Deliberately impossible. Stay where you are. I said, do not engage. Observe only. Keep your distance. Can you see if anyone else is near him? No, Dalton whispered. It's empty. The waiting area, the floor, just him, and sometimes I think I hear footsteps behind the walls. But when I check, nothing. Just empty halls. I leaned back in my chair, mind racing. Multiple calls have been routed to me tonight, each strange in its own way. Malfunctioning monitors, doors closing by themselves, whisper voices. But this was tangible. Someone or something sitting, waiting in a place that shouldn't exist. Focus on what you know. I told her. Lights, floor, door frames. Anchor yourself. Don't interact with him. Don't acknowledge anything unusual. Just observe. She swallowed audibly. He's moving now. Slowly. Not walking, gliding. Just shifting across the floor. And the air, it feels thicker, pressing, like he's here and somewhere else at the same time. I press my fingers to my temples. Stay calm. Keep your eyes on a stable point. Focus on breathing. Don't follow him. Observation only. Dalton whispered again. I see him stop at the end of the hall, near the elevators. But he shouldn't be able to get there. That area is locked. Security would have been notified. I checked the system myself. Locked doors, no elevator use reported. No alert from security. Nothing. Yet Dalton's voice was steady enough to know she wasn't imagining it. I don't understand, she whispered. He doesn't belong. Nothing about him fits. His presence, the way the floor shifts the shadows, and yet I can feel him aware of me, watching, waiting. I felt a chill crawl up my neck. This wasn't just a missing record. This wasn't a clerical error. This was a presence, aware, deliberate, observing, patient, waiting. Do not approach. Do not engage, I said. Keep your distance. Focus on what's real. The walls, the floor, the light. Anchor yourself. Dalton's breathing grew shallow. He's looking at the nurse's station now. Not moving, just standing there. Or sitting. I can't tell. The air, it shifts, bends, almost like the hallway stretches around him. I can feel him everywhere. I press the headset closer, heartbeat hammering. Stay calm. Anchor yourself. Observation only. Focus. Another call came through, this one from security. Dispatch. We're receiving alerts from the floor. Cameras show movement in restricted areas. No doors open. No key cards used. But there's something moving along the hallways. No one visible. Just shadows. Shifting. Watching. I felt a tightness in my chest. Multiple sources reporting anomalies in the same area. Overlapping patterns. Observation. Presence. Awareness. Patient. Deliberate. Dalton whispered again, voice trembling. He's closer. Near the elevators. But the floor beneath him, it shifts. Not normal, like the floor isn't solid. Like it's bending or stretching. I can feel it beneath my feet. The walls, they bend. My vision, I can't. I interrupted softly but firmly. Focus. Anchor yourself. Don't follow the sensation. Count. Focus on your breathing. Keep your eyes on a fixed point. Observation only. There was a long pause, broken only by her shallow breathing and the faint hum of machinery. Then she whispered, almost in awe, he's gone. The waiting area empty. But I can still feel him, pressing against the hallway. The walls, the air, watching. I leaned back, hand shaking, mind reeling. It didn't make sense. Nothing about it did. Yet her voice, the camera reports, the system logs, they all aligned in impossible. Presence without physicality. Awareness without form. Patient. Observant. Deliberate. Stay there, I said. Do not leave. Keep your eyes on one stable point. Focus. Observation only. The line thickened with static. Almost imperceptible whispers layered beneath Dalton's voice. Watching, aware, testing, patient. I pressed my hands over my face. The thought struck me then, a heavy realization. This patient had never existed in the records, never passed admissions, never interacted with staff. Yet it moved, observed, and made the building itself feel alive. Bending walls, shifting floors, stretching space, threading awareness through everyone who encountered it. Dalton whispered, voice trembling. I hear whispers low, almost voices not human, speaking, testing, repeating everywhere but nowhere. I swallowed hard. Do not respond. Observation only. Anchor yourself. Focus. Another sound, faint but deliberate, echoed across the line. A soft thud, almost imperceptible. Footsteps? No. Something heavier, impossible, moving without sound. Circling, measuring, waiting, and then silence. Dalton whispered, he's here, everywhere. I can feel him inside the walls, inside the floor, in the monitors. I don't know. I gritted my teeth, trying to steady my own pulse. This wasn't just a hospital anomaly. This wasn't a clerical error. This was presence itself, threading through the building, through awareness, through the night, aware of every observation, every heartbeat, every thought. Patient, deliberate, observant. The static thickened again, carrying faint whispers, impossible tones layered over one another. Watching, wait aware, testing, measuring, patient. Dalton's voice broke. I can feel him moving through the hallways, through the doors, through the walls, through the lights. He's aware of me, of you, of everything. I swallowed, knuckles white. Yes, exactly. That's what it does. Observation, awareness, attention. Anchor yourself. Focus on what you know. One point, one stable thing. Nothing else matters. The monitors flickered, cameras showing corridors empty, lights shifting, doors closed, but the sense of presence remained. Patient, aware, deliberate, threading through space, aware of my attention, aware of Dalton's, aware of the building itself. Dalton whispered one last time, trembling, voice almost murmur. Never arrived, and yet he's everywhere. I can feel him, always patient, watching. The line went dead. Click. Silence filled the room, heavy and oppressive, pressing against the edges of awareness. My chest ached. My pulse thundered. I sat there, hands pressed to my face, knowing what I already knew. The patient had never been admitted. The patient had never existed, but it had arrived, and it had been watching, and it would continue to watch. And I would never unsee it, because presence, awareness, observation, they were all it needed. And I knew I would answer again, because someone had to listen, because it never stops, because awareness feeds it. It began with a single call, almost ordinary, but it carried a weight I couldn't place. The voice on the line was calm at first, neutral, reporting a minor incident. A car accident on a quiet street. I logged it, entered the details, and set it aside. But then, the voice repeated itself, almost verbatim, down to the pauses, the hesitations, the way it described the screeching tires, the impact, the flash of headlights. I frowned. Are you repeating? I asked, voice steady, professional. Is this a mistake? There was a pause. Then the same calm, neutral tone. No mistake. Just reporting. I glanced at the monitor, checking for any error, any duplication. Nothing. Just the call. And yet, the words were identical. Too identical. Every phrase, every inflection matched what had already been said. It happened again, and with each repetition, my pulse began to quicken. The reports weren't just repeating. They were predicting, describing events that were unfolding in real time, sometimes even before I knew they had occurred. Dispatch, there's a fire on 12th Street, the voice said. I see a car stopping, a person exiting, a child standing in the middle of the road. I froze. My hand hovered over the headset. That exact scene was happening outside the camera feeds. I could hear distant sirens, the muffled chaos of reality bleeding into the call. It was impossible. It couldn't be real. And yet it was. Another call came through, this one from a nurse on the night shift. Her voice trembled. Dispatch, it's happening again. The same way. I can see it before it happens. The patients, the monitors, the hallways, the shadows. I pressed my forehead to the desk, try and keep my pulse steady. It felt like the world itself had folded in on me. The calls weren't just reports. They were threads, weaving to the fabric of reality, showing events before they occurred, repeating moments I hadn't yet witnessed. Focus, I whispered to myself. Anchor yourself. Observe. Log. Don't panic. But panic was already creeping in. My hands shook as I picked up the next call. Dispatch, there's a man standing at the end of the hall, holding nothing, but moving toward the nurse's station. I froze. That hallway had been empty seconds ago. Now, as I watched the monitor, I saw a figure, a shadow-like presence, glide slowly toward the station. No one had reported it entering. It hadn't existed moments before. And yet there it was, exactly as the call had described. I leaned back, breath shallow. This isn't possible. But the line continued. More calls came in, each one predicting events as they unfolded. Patients moving, doors opening, machines flickering, shadows shifting just beyond the edge of vision. Whispers threaded through the static. Every call layered on top of the previous, building a tapestry of impossible foresight. My pulse raced, my vision blurred at the edges. The world felt unstable, folding, stretching, bending in ways that made no sense. And yet, every repetition was precise, deliberate, patient, observant, aware. A new call arrived, the voice shaking. Dispatch. It's near the ICU, moving, waiting, aware of every heartbeat. I press my hands to my face. I had been trained to stay calm, to observe, to log, to remain impartial. But this was beyond training, beyond understanding. My hands shook uncontrollably. The monitors, the calls, the shadows, the whispers, they all pressed in, threading awareness through my nerves, through my chest, through my mind. Anchor yourself. I whispered. Focus. Observation only. Another call. Same voice, same tone, same words. Describing events happening live, right outside the monitor's field of vision. Shadows folding along the walls. Figures appearing and disappearing. Hallways stretching impossibly. Whispers layer beneath the hum of fluorescent lights. I could feel my sanity fraying. The repetition, the awareness, the impossible foresight. It pressed against the edges of my mind. Patient, observant, deliberate. It wasn't just reporting reality. It was feeding on attention, threading through nerves, through awareness, through perception itself. I tried to focus on a single point, the desk beneath my hands, the flickering monitor, one fixed point. Anchor, breathe. But the calls overlapped, each predicting the next, each threading new, impossible details into the world around me. Dispatch, he's in the stairwell that should be locked, moving, folding, aware of every step. I pressed my palms against my eyes, feeling the pulse of the world inside my head. The line hummed with whispers, faint, layered, impossible, patient, deliberate, watching, observing, feeding. The calls continued, relentless, unbroken. Descriptions of events that hadn't yet happened. Shadows folding, stretching, shifting in impossible ways. Figures appearing, vanishing, threading through walls. Machines flickering, lights bending. And beneath it all, the whispers. Faint, incomprehensible, threading into my nerves, my thoughts, my heartbeat. I see it at the end of the hallway, waiting, aware, testing. I swallowed, trembling. The world felt like it had split, like the fabric of reality itself had loosened. The repetition, the anticipation, the foresight. It wasn't just a phenomenon. It was deliberate. It was aware. It knew I was listening. It fed on attention, observation, awareness. I tried to speak into the line, to ground myself, to ask the voice what it was, why it existed. But every word I said felt distant, swallowed by the layering calls, the repeating events, the impossible anticipation. Focus, I whispered again. Anchor, breathe, observe. Nothing else. But it was impossible. Every attempt to ground myself was swallowed by the relentless tide of overlapping, predicting calls. Patience moving in patterns, shadows folding, whispers threading through every monitor, every wire, every corner of the hospital. Another call, same voice, same tone, predicting events a second before they occurred, describing shadows moving just beyond sight, describing figures folding along the walls, describing whispers that hadn't yet reached my ears. I felt my chest tighten, my vision blurred, my pulse thundered. The line wasn't just transmitting information, it was weaving reality itself, feeding on my awareness, threading presence through every call, every observation, every heartbeat. Patient, observant, deliberate, dispatch. I can feel it everywhere, aware of every heartbeat, every thought. I pressed my face to the desk, knuckles white, body trembling. This wasn't just observation anymore. It was a living awareness, threading through reality, through perception, through nerves, through the line itself. Patient, deliberate, observant, feeding. The whispers thickened, layered beneath the calls, beneath the static, beneath the humming monitors. Watching, always aware, testing, patient, observing. I could feel it in my chest, my skull, threading through my thoughts, feeding on attention, observation, awareness. It wasn't just the calls. It was the act of listening, of noticing, of acknowledging. That was the sustenance. That was the purpose. Another call, identical to the last, repeating events that had just unfolded, predicting the next moments. Shadows folding, machines flickering, doors opening and closing with impossible precision. Figures appearing and disappearing, threading through walls, whispers layered beneath it all. I could feel my mind fraying. The world felt unstable, bending, stretching, folding in impossible ways. And yet, the calls continued, relentless, unbroken, patient, deliberate, aware. Dalton's voice, trembling, whispered, It's everywhere. I can feel it, pressing, observing, testing, aware of everything. I swallowed hard, tried to maintain focus, tried to anchor myself to one stable point. But it was impossible. The repetition, the foresight, the awareness, it pressed against every nerve, every thought, every heartbeat. Observation only. I whispered, anchor yourself. Focus. Nothing else matters. But the calls didn't stop. The world didn't stop. Shadows folded. Figures appeared and disappeared. Whispers threaded through the air, the monitors, the wires. Patient, observant, deliberate, feeding on attention, on observation, on awareness. And I knew, deep down, that my sanity was no longer my own. That listening, observing, acknowledging, it had threaded me into its awareness. It had fed, and it would never stop, because awareness was what it wanted, because attention was sustenance, because observation was life. And I was now part of it. The line went silent. Click, but the whispers remained. Faint, layered, patient, observant, deliberate, watching, waiting, feeding. And I knew the next call would come, and the next, because it never stops, because awareness feeds it, because listening is participation, because it has noticed me, and it will never let go. I remember the call like it was yesterday. It came in just after midnight, the kind of hour when the world feels hollow and thin, as if you're listening through a veil. The voice on the other end was frantic, breathless, and distant, but it wasn't just a panic that froze me. There was something in the way they screamed, a sound that wasn't fully human, stretched and ragged, like the wind caught in some ancient crack. Please, help, it's in the house. The words barely reached me over static, but even through the line, I felt the cold crawling along my spine. I hesitated. I've taken calls like this before, screaming in abandoned buildings, kids thinking they heard someone, drunks imagining things. But something about this one made my skin crawl before I even stepped outside. The address didn't exist, or at least not officially. It was a house with no number, tucked between two blocks that the maps didn't even bother to name. The neighborhood on the other side seemed normal enough. Quiet streets, porch lights flickering, the occasional stray cat. But this particular lot was different. Overgrown, unkempt, shrouded in a shadow that didn't quite match the moonlight. I remember staring at it from the cruiser, hands tightening around the steering wheel, the engine ticking as it cooled. I kept the radio on, half expecting someone to call in about me, tell me I'd gone off-route. But there was nothing, just the hiss of the air vents and the distant hum of streetlights. The house sat there, unmarked, like it had grown out of the earth itself, black against the gray night. I swear, even from the car, it felt like it was watching me. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was just the wind, or maybe a loose shutter banging somewhere inside. But the call had said screaming, real screaming, and my gut, stupid as it sounds, told me I shouldn't go in. I stepped out anyway. Night air hit me like a wall, damp and heavy, smelling of wet leaves and something I couldn't name. There was a silence beyond the usual, the kind of silence that presses on your ears, makes them itch. I walked up the cracked walkway, gravel crunching under my boots, each step sounding like an echo to an empty cathedral. The front door hung slightly ajar, not enough to force itself open, just enough that it looked like it was inviting me in, whispering promises I didn't want to hear. I called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" My own voice sounded foreign, too loud, as if I disturbed some private ritual. Nothing. Then it started, a low sound, at first almost like the house settling. But it grew, a murmur, a groan, like the walls themselves were moving, stretching, breathing. My stomach knotted. I wanted to turn back, get back to the cruiser, pretend this call never came. But some part of me, the part trained to respond, to investigate, kept stepping forward. Inside, the house smelled like decay, but not just the usual rotten abandoned place. It was sweeter, almost cloying, like old perfume mixed with iron and damp wood. I could hear it then, faint, almost imperceptible at first, but unmistakably human. A scream, and it was close. Help me? The voice was thin, broken, and it made the hairs on my neck stand straight. I followed it down a narrow hallway. The wallpaper peeled like curling flesh, and the floorboards groaned under each step, echoing like a warning. I wanted to call it in, get someone on the radio, but my hand froze over my... Something about this place made every sound feel raw and distorted, as if reality itself had been stretched thin. Then I saw it, or maybe I thought I saw it. A shadow, moving just at the edge of my vision, flitting behind a cracked doorway of what might have been a living room. I spun, flashlight slicing through the gloom, and caught nothing, just empty air, the echo of my heartbeat in the silence. I told myself it was a trick, the shadows playing with my mind, but deep down I knew it wasn't. I pressed further, each step deliberate, careful. The screaming came again, sharper this time, more urgent. It echoed through the empty house, ricocheting off walls and ceilings in impossible ways. It didn't seem to have a source, and yet it pulled me forward, deeper into the house, into the heart of it. There was furniture here, old and rotting, draped in sheets yellow with age. Broken glass glinted in the flashlight beam, reflecting my own wide, unblinking eyes back at me. I remember thinking that the house had a pulse. Every creak of the floor, every sigh of the walls, it felt deliberate, like it was aware I was there. The voice came again, a whisper this time. Don't leave. It froze me, not with fear. Well, yes, fear, but with something stranger, a recognition. Like the sound had been part of my own life once, echoing from a memory I couldn't reach. And then I realized my hands were shaking, the flashlight tilting, casting walls that twisted like shadows in a funhouse mirror. I wanted to leave. God, I wanted to run. But the door behind me, how had I not noticed before, was gone. Not open, not closed, just gone. A wall, smooth and unbroken, as if I had never entered through a door at all. Panic clawed at my chest, my lungs tightening. I tried the windows, all sealed, dusty, some with strange scratches etched into glass. And then I saw it, in the corner of the room, almost blending with the shadows, something crouched. I couldn't make it out fully, too fast, too still, but it had shape, presence, eyes, I think, or maybe they were reflections, mirrors of something inside me. My mind screamed at me to move, to act, but my body refused. I was rooted, heart hammering, unable to do anything but watch. The screaming stopped suddenly. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise had been. It pressed down on me, made the air thick and viscous, as if I were drowning in it. And in that silence, I heard it, not with my ears, but in my head. A voice, ancient and soft, and yet it vibrated through my bones. Why are you here? I stammered, words failing me. My throat felt raw. I gotta call. A pause. Then laughter. Soft, wet, almost loving, but wrong. It bounced off the walls, carrying something dark, something old. I realized then that the screaming, the frantic caller, it had never been human. At least, not entirely. Something had been calling, drawing me in, waiting for someone to answer. And I had. I stumbled back, tripping over a broken chair, my flashlight skittering across the floor and casting everything into jittering shadows. And for a second, I thought I saw it move closer, gliding, not walking, shifting like smoke. The walls seemed to lean inward, and the ceiling stretched higher, folding impossibly, like the house itself had decided to swallow me whole. I don't remember how long I stood there, frozen, watching. I don't remember thinking of escape or calling for backup. Time warped, minutes or hours. I couldn't tell. The only thing that mattered was that presence, watching, waiting, and I could feel it pressing against the edge of my mind, whispering promises I didn't want to hear. Finally, I stumbled toward the stairs at the back of the house, the only path I could see. My hand scraped along the railing, nails biting into the wood. The stairs groaned under me, loud, announcing my movement, and I half expected it to respond, to pounce from the shadows. But nothing came. Not yet. I reached the top, and the hallway stretched before me, impossibly long. Doors lined the sides, most closed, one slightly ajar. And then I heard it again. A voice, faint, desperate. My name, almost, or something like it. My mind faltered. I couldn't tell if I wanted to see, or if I wanted to run so badly that I might actually disappear from the house's memory entirely. And then I understood. That voice, the one screaming, the one whispering in my head, it had been here long before I arrived. It had been waiting. It had been alone. And it knew I would come. The door at the end of the hallway was different, the wood darker, older, like it had been carved from some tree that hadn't existed in centuries. I approached slowly, each footstep deliberate, my ears straining to catch the faintest hint of sound. And then the door creaked open on its own, ever so slightly. Not enough to reveal what was inside. Just enough to make me want to step back, run, turn and forget I'd ever been called here. I didn't move. My heart pounded, my vision tunneled, and the air itself seemed to thicken around me. Something inside the house waited, patient, silent, aware of every breath I took. And in that moment, I realized the dispatcher was right to hesitate. Some places, some calls aren't meant to be answered, but I had, and whatever waits in the unmarked house now knew my name. I couldn't hang up. I didn't mean to. Really, I've answered thousands of calls. Some frantic, some hopeless, some plainly ridiculous. But this one, it had a gravity I couldn't pull away from. My fingers hovered over the receiver, sweating, trembling, but frozen. There was a voice on the other end, low, desperate, and it clung to my mind like sticky smoke. Please, you have to don't leave me. I didn't even recognize the accent, the tone, or the rhythm. It wasn't just human. I realized that immediately. Something in the way it pulled the words, the way the syllables seemed to stretch and bend, made it sound like the house itself was speaking through the caller. Who is this? I whispered, barely moving my lips, afraid of breaking connection. There was a pause, and then a sound, something like a floor collapsing in slow motion. It knows you're listening, the voice said. It wants you here. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting. My eyes were on the wall clock, ticking far too slowly, every second stretching. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I wanted to hang up, to slam the receiver down, to tell dispatch this was a prank, a hallucination, but something tethered me there. I couldn't break free. They'd been waiting, watching. They know everything. The voice whispered again. There was a quaver in it now, a sharp edge of terror that sliced through me. I wanted to tell myself it was just someone screaming in fear, a person trapped in an old, abandoned building. But I knew better. I felt it, a presence in my office, pressing at the edges of my mind, silent yet undeniable. I rubbed my eyes and leaned back in my chair, but the line didn't drop. The caller spoke again, this time describing details that made me want to vomit. Rooms shift, they move. The walls, they breathe. The ceiling, it's higher than it should be. I've been here hours, maybe days. I can't tell. I see things in the corners, watching. They're always watching. I froze. The words sounded insane, impossible. But I knew what I was hearing. The patterns of fear were too precise, too real. The caller's terror was not a lie. There was logic behind it, horrifying as it was. I tried to ask questions. What do you mean, things watching? Eyes, so many eyes. Behind mirrors, behind windows, inside the walls. I hear them whisper. They call names. They know yours too. And I can't move. The door isn't real. I try to leave, try to run, but it isn't there. It only opens if it wants to, and it never wants to. The voice trembled, breaking in ragged sobs. I gripped the receiver tighter, my knuckles whitening. I tried to rationalize, try to convince myself this was just someone imagining horrors. A young kid lost in an old building, but I couldn't. Every instinct I had, every tiny voice in my head screaming for logic, was screaming at me that this wasn't imagination. This was real. And the screams, you hear them too, right? The caller asked suddenly, a strange calm in her tone. They scream from floors below or above or everywhere at once. And sometimes it's like they're inside me. I feel them clawing through my chest, through my skull, pressing out, reaching for you through the line. I shivered violently. Something about that last part made the air in the room feel viscous, thick, and heavy. My own heartbeat seemed to echo unnaturally, loud in my ears. I had to keep asking questions, had to keep talking. Even though my mind screamed to hang up, what would they look like? I asked. My voice was soft, almost breaking. Sometimes I can't see them. They hide in shadows, in corners, under the ceilings, behind my eyes. But I've seen shapes. Slender, impossibly tall, twisted limbs that bend wrong, heads that tilt the wrong way, faces, oh God, faces that smile when they shouldn't, faces that know me, faces that know everything. I felt bile rise in my throat. My chair creaked as I shifted, my hands trembling. I kept the line open, though I wouldn't let go. I think part of me wanted to see it, to hear it, to understand. But another part of me, the part that had survived every call, every scream, wanted to run screaming into the night. I can't leave. They'll follow me, always. I'm already part of it. The house that's alive, it's patient. It waits for people like you. It waits for people like me. And now it's pulling me in further. I'm losing time. My watch, the clock, none of it makes sense. The line caught in a static crackle. My ears rang. For a second, I heard nothing but the faint hum of the receiver. And then, I can see you. My body froze. Not physically, exactly, but my mind seemed to lock in place. I knew somehow that they weren't lying. Somehow that house, or whatever was inside, knew me. My deepest fears, my name, my face. I hadn't moved from my chair, and yet a shiver ran up my spine as though someone had traced a finger along it. Your office, the caller whispered. The walls are wrong. They bend. The ceiling, it's breathing. I can see you sitting there listening. And I can see you. I know your name. I know. Static swallowed the last part. And for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I wanted to slam the receiver down, wanted to run for the door, wanted to pretend this never happened. But when I lifted my hand, my fingers trembled and the line was still there. The voice came again, clearer, closer, almost inside my head. You shouldn't be alone. Not now. Not after hearing me. It's waiting for both of us. The house, it knows we listen. And now it wants more. I dropped the receiver for a heartbeat, staring at it on the desk as if it might bite me. My hands shook so violently I thought I might break the plastic. And then I lifted it again. The voice was waiting, patient, cold, and alive. I don't know how to leave, the caller said, almost whispering now, as if speaking louder might make it angry. It changes the rooms, the floors. I've tried every exit. I've counted the steps, the doors. I keep ending up back where I started. And sometimes I see myself in the mirrors, but moving wrong. And it laughs. Oh, God! It laughs when it sees me. And I can hear the walls whispering your name now. They know you're here. They know you're listening. A cold sweat ran down my back. I realized I was gripping the receiver so tight it was cutting off my circulation, but I couldn't let go, couldn't hang up, couldn't escape the pull. There was a magnetic weight in the voice, in the words, in the raw, bleeding terror that seeped through the line. Why? Why can't I leave? The caller sobbed, the sound now ragged, raw. The floor, it shifts under me. The doors, they vanish. The ceiling stretch, the walls. Oh God, the walls, they breathe and they watch and they whisper. I wanted to tell them it was okay, that I'd call for help, that we'd get through this. But I couldn't. My mouth moved, but the words stuck in my throat. It wasn't my voice they needed. It was someone to hear, someone to witness, someone to exist in the same reality, however thin, however fragile as them. And then I heard it, something else beneath the voice, a low, wet, scraping sound like claws on wood, moving just beyond comprehension. I froze. The caller screamed. I swear the scream rattled the receiver in my hand. And yet, somewhere in the depths of it, there was laughter, slow, deliberate, patient, waiting. They're here, the caller said, voice breaking in pieces. I think they know we're connected now. They can feel you, feel your fear. And soon they'll be here. They'll reach through. The static flared, the line buzzing violently. And I realized I hadn't breathed in a long time. My hands shook. My chair felt too small. The office too tight. Shadows in the corners of the room shifted, or maybe I imagined it. But the weight of eyes pressing through the dark was undeniable. I wanted to hang up. I had to hang up. But when I tried, the dial tone wouldn't come. Nothing. Just a voice, patient, waiting, knowing I was trapped as much as a caller. And that was when I understood. The house didn't just exist in that abandoned lot. Not entirely. It existed wherever its voice was heard, wherever someone listened, wherever fear was real. And by listening, by staying, I had opened a door that might never close. I can see you, the caller whispered again, voice breaking into an unearthly cadence. And soon, you'll see me and them, and we'll all be here together. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the receiver across the room, but I couldn't. I couldn't break the connection. The line hummed, alive, patient, and impossibly eternal. I don't know how long I stayed there listening, trapped in the call. Hours, maybe minutes, maybe something else entirely. Time had lost meaning. All I knew was that the house had reached beyond itself, and I had answered, and now I think it knows me. The cruiser's tires crunched on gravel that didn't seem to exist on any map, winding through streets that led nowhere, or maybe everywhere. I wasn't alone this time. 2 officers were with me, radios clipped to their vests, flashlights cutting through the thick night. We'd gotten the GPS coordinates from the call logs, but when we arrived, the house sat quietly in the dark, ordinary, normal, too normal. I kept my hand hovering over the receiver on the dashboard. It hadn't stopped. The line was still open, the caller's voice, or whatever it was, still there, low, patient, insistent. I couldn't hang up. Every instinct screamed that I should, but I couldn't, even with other officers beside me, talking, joking quietly to break the tension. My mind was locked into that voice. I squinted at the house. Windows intact, roof straight. The paint, though peeling, didn't look abandoned. A soft breeze stirred the overgrown bushes. For a moment, I wondered if I had imagined the entire thing. If the screaming, the shifting rooms, the impossible presence, if it was all just me. But then the line crackled, and I remembered, "They're here." The voice said, soft, almost intimate, "I can see you. You're close, and yet not far enough." The words made the hair on my arm stand on end. I glanced at the other officers. One was fiddling with a flashlight, the beam slicing through the darkness. "You sure this is the right place?" he asked, voice casual, but his eyes flicked nervously toward the house. I nodded, but my voice caught in my throat. "This is it," I said. "It has to be." The officer grunted, stepping toward the porch. The steps groaned under his weight. I followed, still clutching the receiver, the voice whispering in my ear, threading into my thoughts. "Closer, closer, they're watching. They know your name too." I froze. My own name, whispered from a voice that couldn't be there. I wanted to tell myself it was a dispatcher line, some trick of static and panic, but the blood in my veins screamed otherwise. Something in that house, whatever had haunted the caller, was aware of me, aware of us. The front door looked normal. Ordinary wood, rusty hinges. I reached for it, hand shaking. And when I touched it, I realized the chill that ran through my fingers wasn't just night air. It was deeper, cold that seeped into bones. I could almost hear it breathing back at me, a low, rasping sigh from the other side. The officers exchanged glances. One muttered something about a cat or a raccoon inside. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My eyes darted along the edges of the house. Shadows pulled in corners where there shouldn't have been corners. Windows reflected our flashlights. But something moved in the reflections that wasn't us. A figure crouched, too tall, too slender, tilting its head like it had broken somewhere. But when I blinked, nothing. Just glass, dark and still. The voice came again, clearer this time. Direct, personal. "You can't see me yet, but I can see you. I've been waiting." They've been waiting. And now you're close enough. I felt sweat run down my back. I wanted to step back to tell the officers we should leave, but my legs didn't obey. I couldn't. Some tether, invisible and suffocating, held me there. I realized with a sudden cold clarity that I wasn't just listening. I was part of it. Already, the door opened under my hand. Not creaking, not groaning, just silently, smoothly, like it expected me. I glanced back. One officer raised an eyebrow, clearly unnerved but trying to stay professional. The other followed me in quietly. Inside, everything looked ordinary. Dust on the floor, faded wallpaper, a faint smell of damp wood, a living room with a sofa sagging in the middle, a coffee table with a cracked surface. Nothing seemed out of place, and yet it felt wrong. The air hung too thick. Shadows shifted just out of sight, and every step we took echoed like a heartbeat. I clutched the receiver to my chest. The voice spoke, barely above a whisper, but it filled the room. Look closer, look closer. The walls remember. The floors remember. The ceilings. They've seen you before you even arrived. I tried to shake the words off. Tried to tell myself the caller's imagination was spilling into my mind. But the house didn't feel imaginary. It felt alive. Watching. Knowing. Waiting. One officer muttered, "Maybe it's just the old floorboards." I wanted to agree. Wanted to say, yes, we're safe, this is normal. But my eyes flicked toward the far corner of the living room. Something crouched there. Too tall. Too dark. A shadow that shouldn't exist. It didn't move, not really, but I felt its gaze press against my skull like a hand. My stomach lurched. The voice whispered again, this time sharper, teasing. "Do you feel it? The shadow knows you're here. It has always known. And soon it will greet you properly." I wanted to drop the receiver. Wanted to break it. But I couldn't. Even the officers felt it, I think. Their movements slowed, hesitant. Their chatter died. Even the light from their flashlights didn't seem to touch the shadow. Didn't dispel it. We moved deeper into the house. Each room looked ordinary, but the dimensions, they didn't feel right. Hallways stretched too long. Doorways led to places that didn't make sense. I tried to rationalize, tried to say it was a trick of perspective, but my gut screamed that something impossible was happening. Something alive, something conscious. And all the while, the voice whispered. I could hear it over the faint hum of the cruiser radio that remained in my head. Closer, closer. The house remembers your steps, every step you've taken, every fear you've carried. They are mine now. The shadow shifted again. Not moving, not walking, just stretching, flowing, as if it were liquid darkness. I wanted to scream, but I realized my voice would not carry beyond the walls. It would be swallowed, and maybe it would be taken. I reached the doorway at the end of the hallway. The voice pressed harder, insistent, intimate. This is where it knows you best, where it touches your thoughts, where it will never let go. Look inside if you dare. I glanced at the other officers. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide. They could feel it, too, even if they couldn't name it. I wanted to warn them, to tell them to leave, but my own body felt like it was part of the house now, part of the shadow. I stepped through the doorway, and the room, it didn't exist. Not fully. Walls folded in impossible angles. Windows opened to darkness that wasn't night. Furniture sat where it should be, but wasn't, like echoes of objects rather than objects themselves. The air was alive, vibrating with the unseen presence of something old and patient. The voice whispered in my ear, sweet, terrifying, familiar. You see now. You understand. You are here. You have always been here. And the shadow, it knows. I felt it then. Not a presence outside me, but inside. In my chest, my mind, my blood. A memory that wasn't mine, or maybe when I had forgotten. Surged through me. Images of rooms bending. Faces smiling impossibly. Ceilings stretching forever. And laughter. That same wet, patient laughter from the caller. The officers moved to my sides. Flashlight beams cutting into corners that swallowed them immediately. They didn't see what I saw, or maybe they did and couldn't admit it. I couldn't tell. Shadows moved independently of the light. Shapes shifted against angles that should not exist. And all the while, The voice whispered in my head, guiding, tempting, tethering me closer to something I couldn't name. Soon you will be part of it. You can fight, but you are already seen, already known, already home. I wanted to fight. I wanted to run. I wanted to throw myself out of that room, out of the house, out of the call. But every fiber of my being was rooted. The house, the shadow, the voice, they had tethered me. I could feel it, stretching through the walls, curling around my mind, wrapping me tight. The shadow in the corner stretched toward me, not walking, not moving, just existing and in its existence, folding me into the impossible geometry of the house. The voice caressed my thoughts, whispering secrets I didn't want to know but couldn't ignore. And then, for a single, horrifying second, I understood. The house had always been waiting, not for the caller, not for me, not even for the officers. It had been waiting for witnesses, people who could see, who could listen, who could remember. And once we were inside, once we answered, we were never truly outside again. The shadow pulsed, the walls shifted, the voice whispered one last, intimate promise. You cannot leave. And now neither can they. I don't know how long I stood there, trapped between fear and fascination, between life and something older, something patient. I only know that the line on the dispatcher's desk still hummed with life. The caller's voice still tethered me, and the house, the shadow it knew, and it always would. The line went dead without warning. 1 second the caller's voice was there, rasping, pleading, whispering impossible things, and the next, silence, a hollow, suffocating silence that filled my office and seemed to stretch into the streets outside. I pressed the receiver to my ear, heart hammering, willing some crackle, some hint of sound to return. Nothing. I sat there for a long moment, frozen, staring at the receiver as if it might explode with the sound of the house itself. My hand shook, my mouth opened, but no words came out, not for the first time that night. I wondered if I had imagined the entire ordeal, but the sweat on my forehead, the chill crawling down my spine, and the echo of every whispered word said otherwise. I finally dared to speak into the empty line. Hello? Are you there? My own voice sounded alien, loud and desperate in the quiet office. The radio on the desk hissed static, but no voice answered. Not the dispatcher, not another call, not the line I had spent hours tethered to. Just nothing. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me. My eyes flicked around the office as if the shadows themselves might offer answers. The line had gone dead. The caller had gone dead. And I still felt them. Still felt the pull, the tether, the pressure of some unseen presence pressing against my skull, curling through my thoughts like smoke. I tried to rationalize. Maybe the caller had run out of battery. Maybe they had stumbled out of the house and fled. Maybe it had been a prank. But every instinct in me screamed that this was none of those things. Something impossible had happened. Something that defied logic. The house, the voice, the shadow, they had existed beyond the reach of reason. I couldn't leave it. I shouldn't leave it. Not yet. I needed answers, or at least some proof that the call had been real. I grabbed my coat and left the office, hands still shaking, receiver dangling uselessly by my side. The streets were quiet, the night thick and suffocating. Every step I took toward the location felt like wading through water, slow, laborious, and heavy. The house sat there when I arrived. Normal, ordinary, nothing to suggest the horror that had poured through the line. The grass was overgrown, windows intact, doors closed. No sign of struggle, no sign of anyone inside. I called out softly, hesitantly, but no answer came. Only the wind stirred the leaves, and the shadows shifted unnaturally around the edges. I circled the perimeter, flashlight cutting through the darkness, and that's when I found it. A single shoe, old, worn, and soaked from some unseen moisture, half buried in the mud near the back porch. My stomach knotted. I knelt, heart hammering, lifting it carefully. It wasn't small, not a child's, an adult's. I couldn't tell whose. But the imprint of the shoe, it was fresh, impossibly fresh. Yet the rest of the ground seemed untouched. I called it in, voice trembling despite myself. Dispatch, I found evidence, the shoe. No one here. No body. Just this. My hands shook as I held it. Every second the night stretched longer, the shadows deepening. I could swear the house was watching me, that it had noticed me looking, searching, and it was amused. I stepped close to the porch. The door looked normal. I tested it. Locked. I tried the windows. Locked. But something was wrong. My instinct screamed it. The air pressed tight against my chest, thick and sweet, like rotting perfume. I could almost hear it breathing. And the line in my office, though dead, felt alive in my pocket, like the last thread of the caller's existence still wound through it. I circled the house again. No footprints, no evidence of struggle, nothing but the single shoe and the oppressive, patient weight of the night. And yet, I knew the house had held someone inside, had held them long enough to warp reality, to bend the impossible into something tangible. I could feel it in my bones. I remember leaning against the porch rail, the flashlight trembling in my hands. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to leave this place behind and pretend it never existed. But the shoe, the line, the memory of that voice, they wouldn't let me. Not yet. I stepped inside against every rational thought, every instinct. The air was stale, thick with dust and something else. Something old. Something that remembered. The floorboards groaned, echoing in the empty rooms. Shadows pulled in corners where no corners should have existed. And somewhere, deep in the house, I could swear I heard faint whispering. I moved cautiously, flashlight sweeping every wall, every doorway. Nothing looked out of place. Nothing screamed horror. And yet, the house was alive, patient, watching, waiting. I could feel in the vibrations under my feet, in the slight pulse of the walls, in the darkness pooling just beyond the reach of light. I found more signs. Scratches on a wall, jagged and shallow, too deliberate to be accidental. Marks on the floor, as if someone had clawed at the wood, trying to escape. Dust disturbed in patterns that didn't make sense. And the air, every breath carried a faint whisper, almost like the echo of the caller's voice, bending and twisting, curling into my mind. I thought about calling backup, bringing other officers here, but something held me back. Fear? Perhaps. Or maybe a deeper knowledge that no one else could receive what I had heard, what I had felt. The house, the line, the shadow, they existed on a frequency I wasn't sure others could reach. I sat on the stairs, flashlight beam bouncing across the walls. My head was pounding. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold the receiver. I tried the line again just in case, just in the faintest hope that the caller might respond, that something alive remained on the other end. Nothing. Dead. Cold. Silent. And yet, I knew they had been here. I had heard them. I had felt them. The house had taken someone, or at least housed something, and now it had released them, or hidden them in a way I couldn't comprehend. The unresolved nature of it made the air taste metallic, like blood in my mouth. Hours passed. I don't know how many. I called in reports. I documented the evidence. I circled the house again and again. The shoe was gone the second time I looked. Not moved, not buried, not taken. Just vanished. My notes, the photographs, the logs, they captured nothing unusual. And yet, the memory of what I had felt, heard, and seen was real. Too real. I returned to the office later, exhausted, head pounding, fingers stained with mud from the shoe. The receiver sat there, lifeless. And yet I couldn't bring myself to put down. Something lingered in it. A pulse I could feel through my fingertips. The voice had gone silent, but the tether remained. That invisible thread wrapped tight around my consciousness. A reminder that some calls, some houses, some shadows never truly end. I thought about sleep, about forgetting. But every time my eyes closed, I heard whispers. Faint, patient, promises that the house had not yet finished with me. I could almost see the walls bend in the darkness of my room, the ceiling stretching just out of reach. And sometimes, in the corner of my vision, a shadow would twitch, not moving naturally, not like a person, but flowing alive, watching. The shoe, the missing body, the deadline. It was all a puzzle with missing pieces, and I was left holding the fragments, evidence of something real, something impossible, and yet nothing that could be proven. Nothing that could be understood. Just a memory, the fear, the quiet, patient knowledge that the house had reached beyond itself. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't leave my office. I sat with the receiver, listening to the silence, feeling the pulse of the line, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing into me. And I understood some calls, some voices, some houses are never truly gone. They leave traces, shadows, threads, memories that haunt, tether, and follow. I haven't heard from the caller again. The line remains dead. And yet, I feel them. Somewhere. Waiting. Watching. And I know somehow that one day the line might ring again. And I will answer. Because the shadow knows.